Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Thursday, December 3rd, 2020. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America. Downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Alan Collinge on the case for canceling student loan debt. Then, Elliot Harmon, senior activist of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the question of Section 230. Meanwhile, the CDC warns that the next 3 months will likely be the most difficult in public health history of this nation. As yesterday records near 3,000 deaths in this country from COVID. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer push for a $900 billion COVID relief bill. As unemployment continues unabated, Mitch McConnell balks. President of the United States, Donald Trump, increasingly unglued as Mike Pence slowly, quietly walks away. And with polls virtually tied in both Georgia runoff elections, Donald Trump heads to Georgia amongst a swamp of conspiracies. More than 40 states line up for a possible antitrust suit versus Facebook. Questions arise over Joe Biden's aggressive fundraising for what everyone expects to be a virtual inauguration. Obviously, a virtual non-inauguration, practically. Iran foreign minister signals a willingness for broader deals with the U.S. All this and more on today's program. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Emma is out for the day. She is moving. So thank you for joining us. It has been quite a day for the president gave a 45-minute speech yesterday. I'm not going to lie. I did not watch the whole thing. The first 2 minutes is really
It may have been his most important speech of all time. So.
I mean, according to him, it was the most important speech of all time that he ever gave. And I guess my reaction was, I don't know that I believe that. And so I did not watch it. Frankly, I don't know that there was ever an important speech that he gave, to be honest, because there was very little that he would say that had any direct bearing upon what he would do. Anyway.
I would elect the speech he gave at the convention when there was all this talk of them wanting to throw him overboard for another one of the establishment Republicans, and he came out on the first night unplanned and introduced Melania. I think that's his most important speech because he's like, I'm the daddy now.
He cemented it. I mean, I think there's some truth to that. And but nevertheless, he was convinced it was the most important speech ever. There is an interesting dynamic that is building right now. There was a poll that came out by a Survey USA in conjunction with local channel 11, I believe it was, in Atlanta, and they found that the races between Ossoff and Perdue and Warnock and Loeffler are almost virtually tied. I mean, the Ossoff race, He is up by 2 points, but that is within the margin of error. So essentially, he was at 50%. Purdue is at 48%, essentially tied. Warnock has a small advantage over Loeffler, 52 to 45%. Again, there's a margin of error there, but it appears that he has a slight lead. She has unleashed a barrage of negative ads, digging through apparently his decades of being a minister. That is all part of the politics. But what's fascinating is the turmoil that is going on the Republican side surrounding Sidney Powell, and was never a lawyer for the Trump candidate campaign, apparently, a person who was also seemingly the lawyer for the Trump campaign's attempt to overthrow the decision of the voters. She is there. She held a rally. And much of the rally was an attack on Georgian government officials, essentially saying that they are all in some way cheating Donald Trump and presumably Donald Trump's lawyers. Here is a clip of a man named Lynn Wood, who is at the rally. He and here's what he's saying at this rally.
I want you to go to the governor's mansion. I want you to circle it. I want you to blow your horns until Brian Kemp comes out and orders a special session of the Georgia legislature. Get us our legislature and tell everybody we want our legislator to meet and we want him to fix the mess that he created. And then he can resign. And then, as far as I'm concerned, lock him up.
Let's take a play clip number 6, where this attorney, Lynn Wood, who is on the podium, gets very explicit about what these presumably Republican voters should do.
Are more alike than we are different. But I'm going to disagree with Vernon Jones. Where's Kelly Loeffler here? Where's David Perdue? He ought to be standing right here. Those two people want your vote, then they ought to tell you what we're telling Brian Kemp. Get a special session of the legislature now. Do not be fooled twice. This is Georgia. We ain't dumb. We're not going to go vote on January 5th in another machine made by China. You're not going to fool Georgians again. If Kelly Loeffler wants your vote, if David Perdue wants your vote, they've got to earn it. They've got to demand publicly, repeatedly, consistently, Brian Kemp call a special session of the Georgia legislature, and if they do not do it, if Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue do not do it, they have not earned your vote. Don't you give it to them. Why would you go back and vote in another rigged election? For God's sakes, fix it. You got it.
Now, on stage there, you can see Sidney Powell behind him. Sidney Powell, again, the not Trump campaign lawyer who has been basically pretending for an extended period of time that she was the campaign lawyer. Vernon Jones, who is a Democrat, a congressperson from, a Georgia state representative, a member of the Democratic Party, but has been a vocal Trump supporter. He's on stage there. There may have been others, but that, I don't know how many people were in that rally. But you can hear Lynn Wood sitting there and basically saying, don't vote unless Loeffler and Perdue and Kemp do all of these sort of, I guess, I don't know, these the specific measures to fix the voting there. Now, Lynn Wood apparently is also the lawyer, if I'm not mistaken, for the kid Rittenhouse who killed 3 people.
Yeah, he's one of them.
He's one of the lawyers. Now, there's also some controversy over like who this guy is. Breitbart is insisting that he's some type of like Democratic plant. He apparently has donated to Democrats in the past. It really, I mean, unclear. Obviously, he was invited onto the stage. He is part of this sort of movement. He's been a vocal Trump supporter for some time. But it occurs to me that, you know, if I was the Democratic Party, I would certainly hope that I would have people at that rally saying that type of thing to them to you know, I guess create a little bit of turmoil within the Republican Party voters in Georgia. But it's a fascinating thing, and the Republican Party is just like sitting with bated breath, waiting to see what Donald Trump is going to do when he goes to Georgia on Saturday. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking to Alan Collinge. Although we got one more minute, let's play this then. Let's play this clip of Sidney Powell. She is explaining. Now, understand that there has been $170 million at least raised by the Trumps. I mean, the campaign's over by the Trumps, at least 75% of which has gone into Donald Trump's new PAC, which presumably is going to fly him around the country for 4 years. The other 25% presumably went to the RNC in their attempts to overturn this election. Sidney Powell's apparently has some money in her account from all this and is just keeping her powder dry with the cash. Here she is.
Thank you all so much for caring enough to be here today.
Yeah, us.
Can we pause this for a second? I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of people there. Do we have any numbers on this?
I haven't seen any, but it does sound like a lot.
It sounds like a lot of people. It also sounds like, they're pretty close to each other. But continue.
It is my honor, and I know Lynn feels like it's his honor, and so does the rest of our significant team who have been working day and night since the election, none of whom have been paid a dime yet, although people have been contributing generously to defendingtherepublic.org. But we haven't even had time to get the stuff set up to write a check to pay anybody with yet. We're too busy fighting the fight, but
to pay it.
Thank you. I know you have my 6, and we all really appreciate that. Once again, you inspire us. God bless you, and God bless America.
Yeah, there it is. Well, I mean, she's been doing this work pro bono. So, and here is, wow, that is the reverse angle. Now, it's a tough, type of lens, but those people seem awful close. And I'm trying to see if there was any mask there. It does not look like there were many.
No.
Which is not, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the Venn diagram that includes people who are convinced that there was a server in Germany that has been essentially, I don't know, attacked by U.S. forces to get the data from the vote in Georgia. I'm going to say the folks who believe that, and the folks who believe that they should wear a mask or they shouldn't wear a mask because of COVID. I think there's probably quite an overlap there in that crowd in terms of those Venn diagrams. But we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking to Alan Collinge. He's the founder of Student Loan Justice. We'll be back in just a sec. And this is I just want to give a reminder to folks. Your support makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, we've got merch. Check out our merch, shop.majorityreportradio.com. Great stuff for the holidays. Have we even rolled out the beanie yet? We haven't, right? I keep teasing.
Waiting on final design approval.
I gave final design approval. Didn't I?
No, from Soros.
Okay, well,
the big man.
Let's just do this. Let's get it up there. But folks, check it out, shop.majorityreportradio.com. Don't forget justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority. And also the AM Quickie. You can check that out every day. And later today at 3 p.m., Nomi's show, we have Harvey K., Representative Chris Robb, and Arun Chaudhary will be on with Nomi at 3 p.m. Eastern at youtube.com/The Nomi Key Show. You can check that out. All right. Let's bring Alan on if we have him. I'd like to welcome to the program Alan Collinge. He is the founder of Student Loan Justice. Alan, thank you for joining us.
Well, it's great to be with you, Sam.
Alan, will you just let us know your website again so that people can get more information?
Oh, sure. It's studentloanjustice.org.
Okay, there you go. All right, so let's just start with, if we could, can you give us just some of the sort of the basic numbers around student loans? Where are we at this point in terms of the size of the debt?
Well, officially, we're at $1.6 trillion for federal student loans and another 10% or so on private loans. But, there's a lot of interest baked into the real number that's not included in the official figure. My best estimate is that we're over $2 trillion now. And where, say, in 2004, the average undergraduate was leaving college with maybe $12,000 in loans. Today, it's closer to $40,000 in loans if you include both student loans and also a new sort of relatively new type of loan called Parent Plus loans. So people for an undergraduate degree, people and their families are taking out $40,000 or more.
What percentage do you know, if you know, what percentage of those loans are for-profit colleges or universities?
Well, pound for pound, for-profit colleges get about 90% or more of their revenue from student loans. I don't know what the breakdown is. Roughly, I'd say maybe 10% or so.
Okay.
It's a minority. The for-profit colleges are just horrible, though, if I could say.
Well, yes. I mean, we've spoken about this many times. During the Obama administration, there was a lot of crackdown on these enterprises. And I've mentioned in the past many times, you can go back and you can look at any type of fund that would have for-profit university stocks. And you can see on literally the day after the election of Donald Trump, these things took off like a rocket, straight up. But I'm aware that the entire business model essentially for these for-profit universities is to get government loans. But they so if I understand you correctly, they only represent about 10% of that overall debt.
Yeah, maybe a bit more. Yeah, it's not a huge amount, but pound for pound, it's more than other colleges because, as you said, they get 90% of their revenue from student loans. They've recruited at homeless shelters in the past, anything to get a warm body in the seat, really. And by the way, they spend more money on advertising than they do on actually educating people. So that.
Yeah, people can go back. We've had several interviews about this. I think it was over the years we've talked about this, and I suspect we'll talk about it more because I have a feeling that the Biden administration is going to crack down on that a bit. But what percent of let's just stick with the official figures for now, and then if we want to give us a sense of why you think that money might be those numbers might be higher. But of the official figures, about $1.7 trillion, I guess. What percent of that money is principal versus accrued interest? Like how much 1.7 was actually borrowed?
That is a great and important question that not even the Department of Education knows the answer to, unfortunately. So loans are bought and sold and consolidated and defaulted and rehabilitated, and interest is capitalized into the principal and so forth. So really, nobody knows what that number is. But if you look at government lending over time, so $100 billion per year, and you look at the growth in the loan balance, and if you look at certain parts of the lending system, like the older FFELP legacy loans, and you look at how that decreases over time, you can sort of back out a pretty rough estimate. And my best estimate is that less than a third, perhaps far less than a third of that 1.6 or $7 trillion is actual original principal. And by the way, it's pretty important also to note that since 2010, the federal government has been booking a profit on this lending system of not insignificant proportions. We're talking $50 billion in 2012.
I want to get to the profits, because that is a sort of there's some controversy, it seems to me, around that. I mean, obviously, there's controversy at least around all of this, because if we can't actually say how much of that money was principal and how much of it was interest, we can't even say how much this is going to actually cost the taxpayers, right? Because it's really not a cost to the taxpayers to say that we did not realize the gains that we would have gotten from interest. If we're talking about, if the actual principal that was loaned out with tax dollars was, let's say, $800 billion, $600 billion, you can't, you could say theoretically that money would have been invested in some other socially good purposes and whatnot. But it's stunning in a way that we don't have a hard figure for how much of this 1.7 trillion isn't just like compounded interest.
That's exactly right, Sam. And the cost debate, and you hit on a critical issue. There are a lot of, I call them sort of student loan swamp people, so unelected bureaucrats, lobbyists, other people benefiting from the federal loan program, and they are working overtime to pervert the cost story. So in other words, when you ask them about costs, they'll say, oh, no, the government's not profiting on loans. In fact, they're losing money, and they use all these really perverted costing models. For example, they call something fair value modeling, which in itself is a very fair way to assess the cost of a lending program or other asset. But what they do, and when I say they, I mean people like the Congressional Budget Office under the Republicans, many other sort of swamp minions, Jason Delisle, I could throw some names out. But they are trying very hard to make it look like the federal government is actually losing money on the program rather than making it and making a lot of it. And that's a very important point. But I feel pretty solid, Sam, that truly unpaid principal is a very small portion of that federal portfolio. It's certainly less than a third. I typically tend to be pretty conservative in my estimates.
Okay, well, so let's move on to that question about the whether the U.S. government makes money off of these loans. What is the argument that they do not? If you could characterize that argument for us.
Sure. So number one, people will claim all day long that, oh, we're going to be forgiving all these loans through the public service loan forgiveness program, through the income-based repayment program, and other income contingent repayment programs, where after a certain amount of time, the loans are canceled or forgiven. And number two, they'll say, oh, the government's really not making any money on this because by this fair value lending model, if we had used this money to make, say, private student loans, which are at a higher interest rate, then clearly we're losing money, and a lot of it, on this lending program. But, that just flies in the face of rationality and reason, Sam. In real money terms, the government not only makes something like 6-7% in profit on the portfolio, but many years of White House budget data confirm that even on defaulted loans, the federal government gets back more than it pays out on defaulted loans. So in that case, really all the costing models get blown out of the water. Because if you can't lose money on defaulted loans overall, and the Department of Education does not, it's pretty much impossible to lose money on the program. So, okay, and also on.
If I understand you, let me just stop there. So if I understand what you're saying, when we hear people say the government loses money on these loans, what they're saying is that there's an opportunity cost for having lent this money out at these rates with these default rates, as opposed to other things that we theoretically could have done with the money.
That's right. It's kind of like if Exxon was to point to a guy selling biodiesel in his garage for like $8 a gallon and say, look at that guy. This guy is selling his gas for $8 a gallon. We only sell ours for like $2 a gallon. So therefore, we, Exxon, are actually losing $6 for every gallon of gas that we sell. That is the charade that's going on here with this so-called fair value cost modeling.
I understand. Okay. And so in terms of the question of defaulted loans, when you say that that there's data that suggests that the U.S. government is making money off of defaulted loans, correct me if I'm wrong, if I understand what you're saying, the government loans out, let's just say hypothetically, $1,000. The interest over the course of the loan is maybe $2,000 or $3,000 over the course of that. The government recoups $1,000, maybe recoups another $250 or $500, so $1,500, and then the loan is defaulted upon, and that is the way in which you have. That's the way that you make money on loans that have defaulted. In other words,
that's right. Okay. They don't make a killing on defaulted loans, but they don't lose money. A credit card company is thrilled to get back 5-10 cents on the dollar on a defaulted loan, and so too for every other loan, government or private, in the United States. But if you go to the White House budget going back decades now at this point, you look at Appendix 4 supplementary materials, you will see in all the world of government guaranteed and government made loans, only student loans return more than $1 on the dollar for defaulted loans. It's really an incredible piece of data that nobody talks about nearly enough.
Why?
Sorry.
Why do you think that is? Is that because it is so difficult to default on a student loan?
Well, it's because in the absence of bankruptcy protections, which every other loan has, in the absence of statutes of limitations, which every other loan has, the government has apparently found a way to get blood from a stone. And I should say this comes at a massive social cost. People are hounded for the rest of their lives. Senior citizens are losing their Social Security income. People are having their wages garnished literally for the rest of their lives. And what the government gets back doesn't even cover principal or fees. It doesn't even cover interest in most cases.
All right,
so
I want to go through this. Give us a sense of how student loans are, and you've touched on it a little bit, but give us a more specific sense. How are student loans less protected, let's say, than any other type of loan, whether it's a mortgage or whether it's a home equity or a business loan or even credit card?
Sure.
give us a sense of just what protections are there for every other type of loan or most loans and are not there for student loans.
Well, Sam, I'm actually hard pressed at this point to name a consumer protection that actually exists, certainly for federal student loans. I mentioned bankruptcy, the big two are bankruptcy protections, statutes of limitations are gone for all intents and purposes, but also fair debt collection practices are greatly restricted. Truth in lending laws are gone, and these are federal loans that we're talking about. Even state usury laws have been taken off the table for federal student loans. So really, I'm trying to think of a consumer protection that actually exists for federal student loans, and I can't really think of one off the top of my head. This is the wholesale removal of protections, including bankruptcy, which the founding fathers, by the way, called for ahead of the power to raise an army and declare war in the Constitution. So this lending system is weaponized against the citizens and has been since arguably the mid 70s and beyond.
What was the rationale for this? I know what was the rationale behind making student loans non-dischargeable in bankruptcy, for instance?
Yeah, there was never a good rationale, Sam. I think there was greed. But what happened was the student loan industry, Sallie Mae was a pretty young organization at that point, but people who had a profit interest in this lending program, they seeded stories in the media about law school students, doctors, lawyers, others fleeing from graduation straight to bankruptcy court and discharging their loans. And the media was sort of all a Twitter about it. And lo and behold, they started restricting bankruptcy protections, first putting on a 5-year waiting period, then extending that 5 years to 7 years. And then ultimately in 1998, they took off all time limits. And so by 1998, bankruptcy was completely gone from federal student loans. But Sam, we now know in hindsight that back when student loans were treated precisely the same as all other consumer debt in bankruptcy proceedings, less than 1%, like a third of 1%, wound up being discharged in bankruptcy. That's lower than other categories of debt. So there was never a crisis. In the words of one congressman at the time, he said, "This was a crisis only in the imagination."
So, and if I understand you, when you say there are people who are directly profiting, obviously, like if I'm a congressperson, I'm not necessarily I'm not profiting, obviously, from student loan debt. But the idea was that there's private student loans, and they were looking for these protections, and the easiest way to deal with that was to sort of extend it to everything. Is that what was going on?
Yeah, that's right. Back in the older days and up until 2010, private banks and these sort of hybrid corporations like Sallie Mae, which actually had people from the federal government on their board, but yet still they could make a profit. They owned the loans and the government guaranteed the loans. So protected against default, paid the lenders in the case of default, et cetera. So they had carte blanche to make money on these loans, and they also had this government guarantee that made them essentially risk-free. But they saw an opportunity, and taking bankruptcy protections away I suppose if you want to say there was a rationale, I guess maybe the government involvement in the loans was sort of a very weak rationale. So there was always a profit motive in this lending system. And now today that the loans are federalized under Obama, even still, all the same big guys that were making a ton of money last decade, they are still making a ton of money. They don't own the loans anymore, but they still service the loans, and they still collect on defaulted loans. And that is the key there, because you can take a $100,000 defaulted loan, and you can turn that into a $200,000+ defaulted loan. And in the absence of all those consumer protections that we mentioned, and in the presence of just draconian collection powers that no other lending industry has, it's really like taking candy from a baby. They've got fish over a barrel.
Let me just clarify that. So I default on my $100,000 loan. In other words, I stop paying the loan.
Right.
the cost of that loan continues to accrue, right? I mean, the interest accrues and I get more penalties and fees. There are no safeguards as to how I can function as a debt collector or a debt, my loan collection agency. And I continue to hammer. And at various times, I find ways of garnishing this person's wages. I find maybe a garnishment of their Social Security if they're getting some, maybe other government benefits that they might have. That's what you're saying in terms of how this continues to be profitable, even when the loan is defaulted.
That's exactly right. So, certainly some people fall off the grid and change their name and move to Mexico or whatever the case may be and never pay anything. But there's clearly a lot of people who come into a financial windfall, inherit money, have their as Social Security, even disability income garnished, et cetera, wages garnished. So on balance, the government actually is making a little bit of a profit on these defaults. And by the way, this is very rarely reported, but I urge your listeners to go to the White House budget, look at the supplementary materials, look at the recovery rates in Appendix 4, and it's unambiguous.
Well, it's fascinating because much of this, frankly, this was obviously heavily implicated in the primaries, the Democratic primaries. Joe Biden was very much involved in a lot of this bankruptcy reform, as it were. Elizabeth Warren entered into politics in many respects because of some of those so-called reforms. And all right, so lastly, because we've got to move on, but lastly, give us a sense of just like, to what extent, how hard would it be to cancel all this? And then what do you do going forward? I mean, if you cancel the debt, obviously you don't want to continue on with the same system that is creating basically indentured servants in some respect.
Yeah, this can't continue. And we are now at the point where this lending system is in catastrophic failure. 80% of all borrowers were never going to be able to repay their loans, even before the pandemic. So the default rate for 2004 students is 40%, and they were only borrowing a third as much as is being borrowed today. So by all rational metrics, the lending system it's done. It's, the subprime home mortgage default rate was 18%. And we are looking at 75 or 80% now. So the loans have got to go away. And the easiest way, thankfully, at least for federal student loans, is by executive order. So the Department of Education, the secretary, and by extension, the president, it turns out they can cancel loans. They can waive, release, compromise their interest in a very broad way. The president, in fact, President Trump today, could order the secretary to cancel all federal loans, and it would happen. There would be controversy, certainly, but it can happen, and we've been calling for exactly that since March. We started a petition, change.org/cancel student loans. We've got nearly 1 million signatures now, but it turns out that this is a very efficient way to cancel loans. There's nothing to be paid for. You don't need to raise additional tax monies. The taxpayers already paid for these loans many years ago, and they didn't pay much. And this adds nothing to the national debt. And so there's really, in my view, there's no better, easier, better targeted, or cheaper way to stimulate the economy right now than by literally ending this lending system and coming up with something more fair, more rational, more rationally priced going forward.
Alan Collinge, founder of Student Loan Justice is it studentloanjustice.org?
Yep.
I can find you there. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, folks. Now I think we have Elliot Harmon coming up next. We have him. Elliot Harmon, he is the senior activist at the Electronic Frontier Foundation. And we're talking about something that I think people are going to be hearing a lot more of. Right now, Donald Trump has said that he will not sign the defense authorization bill unless Section 230 is struck from the Digital Millennium Act. And so I think we're going to hear a lot more about this going forward. Regardless of who controls the Senate, frankly, starting in January. Elliot, welcome to the program. Thanks for coming. Tell us what Section 230 is and when was it created?
Sure. Well, first, thank you so much for having me on, Sam. I'm really excited to be here. Section 230, there's actually a little bit of a misconception. It was passed as part of the CDA, the Communications Decency Act, in 1996, and not the DMCA, though it's sometimes worth talking about both laws together. Section 230, to put it just very succinctly, it says that if you go on the internet and you say something unlawful, you're the one who should be held responsible. You're the one who should be liable, not the website where you said it and not any other party. There has been a bit of a misconception. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Unlawful. What constitutes something unlawful? I mean, so something if I libel in writing or I slander somebody on on this program, let's say, what else would constitute unlawful?
Right. You're right on the first one, that many of the cases that involve Section 230 are libel or defamation cases. There's also certainly material related to obscenity laws, relating to sex work, and we can have a whole discussion about the one time that Congress changed Section 230 and put sex workers in a great deal of danger. There are, lots of laws that implicate speech in one way or another. And again, what Section 230 says, or what it does, is it says that you are the one responsible for those posts. You're the one who will be held liable in court, not the app that you use to post it, not the website where you posted it. One of the ways that there's been so much misinformation, and that Trump himself has been the source of a lot of that misinformation, is saying that Section 230 is some kind of handout to big tech or to Silicon Valley. Section 230 protects all of us. If you've ever forwarded an email, if a court decides that email is defamatory, then Section 230 says that you can't be held liable for it.
I see. Okay. So, but it has been a gift to big tech in some respects, right? I mean, it's not a unilateral one. And at the time that it was developed, it wasn't necessarily, it has been one of the mechanisms that has allowed these platforms to grow. And so let's talk about how we deal with some of the problems that we have with these platforms, right? And we're talking about Facebook, we're talking about Google, to some extent we're talking about Amazon and all their subsidiary companies. And what, from your perspective, what do people see as the problem?
It's interesting. There's been kind of these two parallel discourses going on about Section 230. On the one hand, you have primarily people on the right, saying that the problem is that Twitter and Facebook are censoring people, and in particular this idea that they're primarily censoring conservatives, which, as far as I can tell, is a claim without a whole lot of evidence to back it up, and that the platforms need to be quote unquote neutral public forums. There's even this myth that somehow you need to be a neutral public forum, or you need to be unbiased in order to have Section 230 protections, and that's not true. At the very same time, there's this other discourse that I'd say is kind of primarily people on the left saying that platforms aren't doing enough to remove disinformation, to remove hate speech, and saying that Section 230 should be changed somehow to say that you only get Section 230 protections if you meet these certain criteria for removing that kind of problematic material. The irony is that on both sides, there's this little nugget of truth that it is a genuine problem that there are only, depending how you count, 4 or 5 companies that control so much of speech on the internet, such that the moderation decisions that one of them makes will have massive reverberations in terms of who's allowed to speak and who's allowed to organize online and what messages get out there. That's a genuine problem. Unfortunately, people have latched on to 230 as the vehicle to use to address that problem, when at least all of the evidence that we have so far shows that undermining 230 or completely repealing 230 as Trump claims to want, will give the big tech companies more power. I mentioned a second ago, Sesta Foster.
I want to walk through this because this is important for people to understand. The argument that let's say you hear from the conservatives, like, I've been shadow banned, or I'm not allowed to find out the real truth of the server in Germany that has been, taken by an elite squad of American military personnel, and they're going to deliver it to Governor Kemp in Georgia. I can't say that as if it was, something, on my Facebook thing. That channel that gave me that information is no longer, operating. The argument there is that these platforms have become so important and integral to our daily lives that they are essentially functioning like a utility, like the electric company, like the idea of phone lines. And therefore, they cannot make those distinctions in any more than, the phone company can decide what I say on the phone to somebody else or in a conference call or something to that effect. That is one of the issue there for that type of censorship. And then the other, of course, is you're a public utility. You have a responsibility to differentiate between these things in the same way that, like, the FCC regulates broadcast television and says, like, you can't, there's certain limitations as to what you can do here. Some people argue that we should nationalize these platforms, which I think is very problematic, because then you have the government in there deciding, what these standards are. And that's very complicated. I certainly wouldn't want Donald Trump's FCC to be in charge of whatever agency it would be as to what, Twitter can put out there. So then the question is, like, how do we deal with this stuff? And your argument is that to focus on 230 is looking at the wrong thing. Well, so what would happen if we got rid of 230 in terms of these things?
It's funny. There's this idea that's developed that if we got rid of Section 230, then suddenly platforms would become a lot more hands-off in their moderation decisions. It's a little bit hard to tell what would happen because all of these companies that we're talking about were founded well after 230 passed. But from the evidence that we have, at least thus far, the opposite would happen. They would need to become much more restrictive in what they allow online and in, frankly, who they allow online. All of
a sudden, like, if somebody's going to write on Twitter, I mean, I guess I'm a public figure, but if someone was going to write something like, boy, I watched the Majority Report today, and that Elliot Harmon, he looks like a blankety blank, and he accused you of something. You could sue whoever, on that platform, theoretically, in which someone wrote that, right? I mean,
right. And it's important to. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, well, go ahead.
And it's important to think about that from the perspective of the platforms. The question for them would not be. Would we be able to fight off a defamation suit in court? The question would be, will that defamation suit happen in the first place? What 230 essentially does is it gives platforms and other kind of intermediaries too flexibilities to sort of define their own moderation policies. And I think personally it's a good thing for the internet to have some platforms that are more restrictive and some that are more hands-off. I think it's good to have that multiplicity of choices. But when platforms are essentially forced to put their thumb on the scale, forced to put anything that is in a gray area into the delete pile, who's affected by that is not uniform across everyone. The people who would be removed from the discussion first would be marginalized voices.
Of course, that's always the case in any dynamic, right? I mean, it's always the people with the least amount of political or economic power who are going to be the first, who are going to lose in that situation. All right, well, so let me bounce this off you. So, I mean, and I think, we talk a lot about antitrust on this program, and if the solution is not to be able to like effectively moderate these things or to come up with the perfect special sauce as to what things should be allowed and whatnot, the only other solution is to make these platforms not as so crucial to be a part of if you want to communicate. It seems to me, from my perspective, instead of like, the world can still exist if Facebook isn't the place that everybody goes to. There could be 5 other Facebooks, and so that, you can go to the one that you're a little bit more suited to. We already, are in our own silos on these things anyways. So the idea that multiple ones would exist. Let me bounce this idea off you. I mean, there's multiple ways in which antitrust can be applied to these things, and usually has to do with separating the data of the users and the ability to sell that data or sell against that data, right? And sell advertising. We have about 4 or 5 minutes here, so I want to bounce this idea off you. What if there was no algorithm? Could we, under an antitrust, let's say, paradigm, could we say one of the things that we won't allow is an algorithm that feeds you content, right? Because the argument is that these things are platforms, not publishers. That's why they don't have the liability, because they're not actually publishing this content. They're just providing a platform for other people to publish it. But what does a publisher do? It seems to me makes editorial decisions. And the algorithm, which pushes you content, is basically an automated editor, isn't it? It's saying, this is the stuff that we're going to promote. This is how we're going to aggregate it for you, the user. Could you eliminate that algorithm so that everything is just swimming out there?
It's funny, whenever somebody proposes something like that, I always want to say, like, really? Are you sure you want an internet in which everything is swimming out there? Everybody who exists on Twitter has the experience of getting some weird spam message in your DMs, or getting some message that is purporting to be from a real person, but is actually some kind of porn advertisement. I get one of those almost every day. And consider that that's just the tip of the iceberg. Those are just the ones that are getting through the filter currently.
Well, there's a difference between a filter and an algorithm that pushes stuff, right? I mean, like, I watch something on YouTube. YouTube is going to be pushing me content, and that's different from filtering out stuff that may be spam. And they're filtering me content because that's also going to make me a riper commodity for their sales.
Now you're, in my opinion, hitting on like one of the really important points here, is that when we're thinking about how to deal with the lack of competition in social media platforms, one, we frankly need some updates to antitrust law. One of the kind of limitations of antitrust law right now is that sort of the primary way that it contemplates consumer harm is price. And price isn't really what we're talking about when we're talking about the lack of competition in these platforms. We're talking about privacy. We're talking about, to take the current example of the Google Fitbit merger, we're talking about a company that exists by turning your data into advertising, suddenly being able to collate your data about your online behavior with your data about offline behavior, which brings a cost to consumers that doesn't necessarily just boil down to price.
Yes, and I have to say, on behalf of the many people we've had on to talk about antitrust, we don't need a change in the laws. We just simply need a different, a return to the way that we applied these laws prior to the 70s and the sort of Borkian shift that took place under Reagan. So we don't need actual change to laws. We just need an attorney general and a Department of Justice that decides to apply the laws in the way that they were originally applied prior to the changes in disposition under the Reagan administration. I should just say that. I mean, that's
okay. Fair point. To your point about privacy, I also think that we need to think about more serious privacy legislation kind of in concert with the antitrust discussion. And this is, in my opinion, where the rubber really hits the road. Facebook endorsed SESTA FOSTA. Facebook is already signaling a kind of pre-endorsement of future changes to Section 230. Facebook and Twitter and Google will be the beneficiaries of future attempts to undermine Section 230, but you're not going to hear them endorse the kind of privacy protecting legislation that EFF endorses, where if they break the rules, then you have a private right of action. You can actually sue them and take them to court. You're not going to hear Facebook endorse that.
Elliot, we've got about 30 seconds. What does Facebook think? They have a competitive advantage if 230 is applied because they'll have the ability to moderate stuff in a way that competitors won't? Why do they support it?
Right, because Facebook has, these gigantic staffs of people doing content moderation. They have the filters and algorithms and all of that stuff. They also have the legal cushion, right? Whenever something gets proposed, like, oh, what if we passed a bill that requires platforms to do such and such? There's a whole bunch of ways that law is going to need to be tested in court, and a startup is not going to have the budget to do it. I always point out, one, that Facebook endorsed SESTA, and two, right after SESTA passed, when multiple dating sites shut down, I think it was literally 3 weeks later, Facebook announced that it was starting a dating app.
There you go. Well, Elliot, I appreciate it. Folks can find out more by going to the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Sam.
All right, folks. That's it for the program today. Reminder, you can, if you missed any part of this program, you can see it on the Peacock app. You can check out The Choice. You play at 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. every day, and then runs through the night. All right. We will see you tomorrow. And for those of you who are sticking around for the fun half, do so. Old Matt will be here. New Matt will be here. Jamie will be here. And Brendan will be here. You guys don't have adjectives. I'm sorry, Brendan. I'm sorry, Jamie.
That's all right.
Just good Jamie, good Brendan. How's that?
That's perfect.
If we are pilgrims or something.
What's that?
Isn't that like a Puritan thing or something, like Goodman? Yeah. Goodman, Brandon.
Goodman,
Goodman, Brendan. Good woman, Jamie. Goodly.
Do we have Jamie? Is she here?
They haven't joined yet. Let's see if we can get them on.
Just a reminder, Nomi's show starts at 3 p.m. after this show every day. You can check out youtube.com/The Nomi Keys Show. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Don't forget, you can support this program by becoming a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. Joining us now, I see old Matt coming into the thing. New Matt, tell us what's been happening on Left Reckoning.
Yeah, Left Reckoning, folks. David Griscom and I's new venture. It's both on Twitch and on YouTube. David and I did our first think tank stream on Tuesday, and so you can check that out. That's on repeat. And I'll be in charge of the Twitch. So go subscribe if you folks that are watching on Twitch. Go subscribe to Left Reckoning on Twitch, because I think I'm going to stream maybe after the show tomorrow, and I'm going to try to steal the raid from Majority Report. So sorry, Mike from PA. But anyway, yeah, Left Reckoning on Twitch.
Ooh, controversy. Old Matt, what's happening on Doomed?
On Doomed tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, live at youtube.com/Matt Binder. Rachel Greenspan of Insider will join the show to discuss her look into how QAnon spread within the yoga and wellness communities. That's sort of how QAnon has went from, right-wing fringe movement to now your aunt, uncle, maybe even mom and dad are sharing Q drops on Facebook. So we'll get into how that happened and what that means for the future of these right-wing conspiracies tonight. youtube.com/Matt Binder, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Subscribe now.
Is Q like what? Like how Georgia? How like vote stealing? Like where is Q on all this? I mean, it feels very QE, but it doesn't seem as explain. Like I'm not seeing like a bunch of Q posters, around these things.
Right. The conspiracies are definitely being spread by QAnon believers, but as for what Q thinks, we don't know because Q hasn't posted in something like 20-something days.
What?
Yeah, whoever's running that account is currently huddled with I don't know, his conspiratorial buddies and maybe the other people who help him run him or her, I should say, run that account. And they're trying to figure out, I guess, where to go from here, because right now the QAnon people are all left on their own, and they're spinning it as, Q is doing this on purpose to test us, to see if we can carry on without, they find ways to explain why he's not or she is not dropping his communiques right now. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see what Q thinks.
Thank you. It could be a lady conspiracy theorist. I appreciate that.
Of course.
It could be. Equal opportunities over on 8kun,
But it could just be Sidney Powell and she's really busy.
That's right.
Right.
She doesn't even have time to write herself a check. Jamie, what's happening on the Antifada?
Well, this week on the Antifada, we had a little programming change. So this is running this week now. It's actually out now. We talk with Aaron Beninob about his new book, Automation and the Future of Work. He studied under Robert Brenner at UCLA, and he's very much an advocate of the Brenner thesis for exactly why things are so messed up in our economy following the neoliberal turn of the 1970s. He's got a really compelling explanation for why the demand for labor is dropping worldwide. It has more to do with economic stagnation than it does automation and productivity growth. We had a really good talk with Aaron, so check it out, patreon.com/theantifada. And then on Friday, we have part 2 coming out where he talks about some visions for a better world. Spoiler alert. It's communism. Also, I wanted to plug a couple of things for Giving Tuesday. I realize it's Thursday now, but I wasn't on the show on Tuesday. So one of them is a mutual aid center in Tijuana called El Comedor. That's very near and dear to my heart. We did an episode of the Antifada where we interviewed some people there. I did a benefit show for them last year on Halloween when we could still have benefit shows. I'm going to put a link to that in the blog post. Donations may not be tax deductible because they're not a nonprofit, but you can be happy knowing that all of your money will go to things people need instead of the salaries of rich liberals' children. Also, we've got, I put a link in the blog post the other day, but I never talked about it. The Atlanta Solidarity Fund, because a number of activists have been arrested in recent weeks, including our friend Dick, who you may know from the Line Goes Down series on the Antifada. He's currently being held without bail in an ICE facility in Atlanta. So the Atlanta Solidarity Fund is doing great work helping him and other folks out. And I'm going to put a link to donate in the blog post.
All right. So folks can find that in the blog post and in the YouTube description as well. Those will be in there. Okay, folks, see these guys in the fun half. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2, 5/8, 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance. Rand Paul. I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way. Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook.
Throw our hands up.
Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey! Shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
All right. What's up, everyone? How have you all been on this? First Thursday since Thanksgiving. I don't know why that was such a tongue twister, but it was.
Oh, I've got a lot on my mind these days, as I'm sure we all do. But I feel like sometimes, even during this pandemic, we get little pockets of normalcy. And that's what happened for me last Sunday. I went to brunch. I know that's a controversial topic around these parts.
See. Joe Biden wins and Jamie goes to brunch.
I went back to brunch immediately. That's what I did. The really, really good spot in my neighborhood where they have outdoor seating with some heaters, that I had some brunch with my friend Boy Jamie, who's a real person and not just a male version of myself that I made up. And then I went back to his house and he tried to teach me how to play video games, because I think I'm going to be doing more Twitch stuff these days.
Is there a specific video game or just general how to play video games? Because that seems kind of.
Yeah. This is
I
a
don't know
controller.
if that's
Oh, well,
yeah, I don't know if that's a thing.
I mean, my knowledge kind of stops at Super Nintendo, because that's the last thing I had. I was very good at it, by the way. I beat all of Super Mario World, but we played a few games on whatever the newfangled thing is that he has.
There's a number of newfangled things. You don't know which one it was?
I forget, but
Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, anything sound.
Maybe it was an Xbox. I don't know. I played the one that was most my speed was Goat Simulator, where you're just like a goat and you run around messing with things and people. But I was really bad at the Tony Hawk skating, the Star Wars game where you have to fly around and shoot things, and
wow, you're really pulling off.
That's hard. I have that Star Wars Squadrons. Difficult game.
It was really hard. I couldn't figure it out.
But also, I want to mention how hard Jamie is making this to figure out what system she played, because she's picking multi-platform games. So she's really, I'm trying to figure. I thought you'd be like, Mario, maybe Gears of War, something where I could lock down what you've been playing.
Well, I also did Paradise City, if that helps, where you're like driving a car around and you can do races, or you could just like crash into stuff like I did. I don't know. But I'm trying really hard to get good at it. So maybe I can like do what Matt does and talk about things at the same time that I play the games on Twitch. But I probably won't be gaming very much on Twitch. But if people want to see me play video games badly, then I will give them what they want.
I downloaded a bunch of games because I have the Xbox Game Pass for my 5-year-old. We literally got an Xbox One at the beginning of the pandemic when it seemed clear that my 5-year-old was going to be home bored without anything to do for many, many days and weeks at the very least, which turned out to be very many, many months. And so we got the Xbox One and I got the Game Pass so we could play a bunch of games, which is basically like, a subscription to whatever games they have on there, like a Netflix for video games. And I got him a game called the Untitled Goose Game, which is a really fun, like a game for all ages. And then I saw Goat Simulator. I didn't really know anything about it. And I was like, Untitled Goose Game, Goat Simulator, they got to be one and the same, right? So I downloaded the Goat Simulator and I put it on for him. And I immediately had to stop it because it was very clear that Goat Simulator is like Grand Theft Auto, except you're a goat.
Pretty much. That's why I like it.
For the past couple of weeks, actually, I have been staying up late trying to, and I did it at the very last moment, level up my son for the season finale of Fortnite. They have seasons. You pay like $8 to play like 3 months worth of a season, and you level up to 100 and you get all these different things. And so it was a race to get to 100 before it ended on Tuesday. And I got there, like the last moment I was able to play. I got him. I unlocked Iron Man for him. And then at 4:00, they did like this big one-time event to end the season where Galactus came and he was home and got to face Galactus. And it was pretty cool. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you look up on YouTube, you'll see something like 15 million people logged in at the same time to play that special, like 20-minute long event. It's pretty crazy.
Matt, you're basically Arnold Schwarzenegger in Jingle All the Way.
I am, except instead of like running out to stores to play, I'm pulling all-nighters trying to level up in Fortnite. Yeah. It really was like a race to get to it because they shut it off like 30 minutes before 4. Like you literally can't play the game for 30 minutes before. And then for like 8 hours after the event too, you can't play while they're updating everything. So like you are locked into like, there's a hard deadline. If you don't get to level 100, you don't unlock Iron Man and all the other stuff. So it was like a race against time.
All I could think about is the rentism future, like things are instantly reproducible in this context, but we still have capitalism. So people hold the IP and then, you gotta wait on that. Pay for it.
Speaking of that, though, you can actually pay to just level up. Like my son's favorite video game YouTuber, I was watching him. He just got the new season of Fortnite, which is now another 3 months of a different theme. And in that, though, like, and I could have done this, but I refused. I wanted to play the actual game. You pay the $8 to get the battle pass, which gives you the opportunity to unlock all this stuff. But then if you don't want to actually play the game to unlock the stuff, on top of that $8, you can pay something like 150 of their in-game bucks to unlock one level at a time. So all in all, you can pay like $150 to just unlock everything instead of playing through the game and actually earning it. And I was like, I refuse to do that. I'm not giving them even like, one level worth of money. I paid for the battle pass. We're unlocking this organically. So yeah, I mean, that's crazy though, that you could just unlock it all without playing the game and just automatically get to level 100 if you pay something like $100-something bucks.
That's capitalism.
I would never.
I don't know if I'm supposed to announce this yet, but I have joined the board of an eco-socialist video game that's coming out soon. So I'll have more announcements on that shortly. Just a little teaser for you.
Ooh.
Because I know so much about video games.
Well, you know a lot about the other side of that project. There's 2 parts, it seems, when you say eco-socialism, video game.
Mm-hmm. True.
If you, I'm offering myself up for voice talent of even a minor character. So make sure you use your pull your strings on the board.
On that note, and I just want to say on voice acting, have you played? What's the game that Virgil and is it Matt from? Chapo?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's like Disco something.
Disco Elysium. Yeah, I played through, and I haven't played through much of it, but I played far enough to get to Virgil's voice acting, and it's okay. It's okay voice acting. I'll say that it's okay. It's fun. It's very funny.
I haven't heard their acting, so I can't say one way or another. But all I could promise you, Jamie, is that I will give the best voice acting of I'll be nominated. We will get this game nominated for whatever video game awards there are out there.
All right, well, I'll let them know.
I know Spike TV doesn't exist anymore. I know they used to have a video game awards show, but whatever it is, G4's coming back. We'll win a G4 award if they do that.
I'll let him know. And maybe you and Virgil can battle it out for who wins that award. Because I feel like
I'm sure there's more than one character that can be voiced in the game.
He's probably pretty good. You have reached the ultimate wonk level. I can't do his voice today, but it's something to do with bottled water and whippets. That's what he probably says.
I don't know. But you guys want to jump to a piece of audio? Or do you want to go to a call? What shall we do? First of all, I'm noticing that Emma's not here. Is she off this week or something?
Yeah, she's moving today.
Oh, well, good luck on your move, Emma. I was exactly where you are right now just 1 month ago, and I could tell you that I wouldn't want to be in your shoes right now because it is exhausting. Matt, you could pull yourself up on the camera, buddy. Why not?
I might do that a little bit later. We'll see.
Okay, sounds good. Gonna get all set up.
I'll let you guys be the sort of stars of this Thursday.
All right. We'll
step up, step back.
We'll handle.
I like it. Okay, well, I've got this India story ready to go. So let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it right now, and then I can just coast for the rest of the fun half.
Well, I don't know about that, but go ahead.
All right. So this is very cool. It's some hero of the week shit. So we've seen protesters facing down the cops all over the world in recent months, right? We've got it happening here in the US. We've seen it happening in France. Like, whoa, French really know how to riot. And it's also popping off in India. So right now in India, we're seeing multiple waves of what might be the largest general strike in history. We've got hundreds of millions of people walking off the job to protest the ruling party, the BJP's anti-worker policies. So the latest wave of this came last week when this giant general strike converged with a massive uprising on the part of farmers' organizations who are protesting 3 laws that are being pushed through by Modi's government. They will reduce the money that goes to farmers, take away minimum price supports, and favor international agribusiness corporations. So the police have responded in characteristic manner with tear gas and water cannons. And since the pandemic started going on around the world, they've used it as an excuse to crack down even harder. But these protesters are not being dissuaded. So the other day, last week, we saw a hero, this guy named Navdeep Singh, total Chad, who owned the cops by doing some real Spider-Man shit and shutting off one of their water cannons. Do we have that clip? See him climbing up on a police vehicle, turning it off, and then jumping to safety.
That's pretty badass, especially with this epic, trailer music behind the clip.
And the multiple angles too. I wish they had like the thing they have for sports sometimes when they do this 3D shift between angles, but yeah, that's
right.
Awesome.
Like the 360 like turnaround of the
bullet time sort of thing.
No, that'd be pretty cool. So this guy, he's become a bit of a folk hero in India. India Twitter is blowing up about him, and he's even, internationally being recognized. So he got interviewed by the news, and he said, quote, by the news, by a local channel, Punjabi local.
Okay.
He said, I climbed from a tractor trolley onto the truck and reached the tap. I turned it off, but a policeman had also climbed onto the truck chasing me. But by that time, my brother had brought his tractor near and I jumped on it. He said he was struck with canes by policemen, but holds no ill will against them as they were only doing their jobs.
No.
I want to spotlight a few things from this, actually. One,
that last part I'm not so into.
Yeah,
but
no.
all over a good story.
People are bringing their tractors to these protests. Farmers are like driving their tractors into the city and creating massive blockades with them. Very cool. Also, even as they're protesting this horrible fascistic government, everyone is being so polite. Like, he said that he doesn't hold ill will against the police. A different guy who got quoted by the media told he told the police, "This is a revolution, sir." Like, they're so polite. Unfortunately, the police have no problem holding ill will against him because he's now being charged with attempted murder in relation to the incident. So maybe you should have some ill will against these people.
India is full of reply guys to Donald Trump on Twitter. It's all people going, "Mr. President, sir, by the way, excuse me, did you know that you are," you know what I'm talking about? Those type of resistance people who are all about like decorum while yelling at Donald Trump for trying to like steal the election and destroy democracy. And they're still like, "Excuse me, good sir, kind fellow Trump."
Well, maybe if these people would actually fight the cops and, shut off their water cannons, I would respect them the way I respect this guy.
Right. We will.
Well, that really goes to show that the work is more important than the, whatever you sort of rhetoric.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's going to be really interesting to see how these protests develop because they are enormous and, I would say important. And it's just one more example of how people are fighting against this right-wing nationalist authoritarianism that is popping up all over the world in response to crisis and other conditions.
And, particularly the sort of cross farmer worker, protests against neoliberalism that's exactly what we want to do here, right? Like and the growing consciousness, we see it in South America as well. Like the consciousness is there, it's just linking it together is the challenge because people are realizing the same problem everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
And I read an article about it in Jacobin that said, the farmer's role in all of this is a little confusing because it is a cross-class alliance of sorts. Like some of the farmers are workers, wage workers, some of them are business owners, but neoliberalism has progressed to the point that it is creating openings for this kind of alliance, this at least a temporary one that hasn't existed before. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with the agrarian question here, which is something that leftists have been thinking about for a very long time, and there really is no consensus on. But I just enjoy all the internet comments about this guy. Like somebody said that the water that's like the flood of pussy that he's gonna get. For being such a Chad, it cracks me up.
Well, what I was gonna say was this.
I just hope he evades, incarceration.
Yeah.
Right,
More importantly, hopefully, maybe there'll be some ladies waiting for him at the end of it. But most importantly, he's got to stay out of jail.
Right. This discussion we're having was actually making me think of the sort of, I guess, failures here because, in all these uprisings we see around the world, in Bolivia to protest for Morales, it was a lot of indigenous people and the votes that put him over the top that showed how powerful he was in terms of, being a voice for the people. They came from rural areas. And then here you have farmers in India fighting against this fascist government. But here in the U.S., rural areas, not all people who live in rural areas, obviously, but rural areas tend to be more conservative. And I wonder how that, it makes me think how that ended up.
Settler colonialism, I think, has a lot to do with that.
I mean, they have strong communist parties in India. They have a left-wing movement that does not exist here. And they have a working class movement that does not exist here. And it's very advanced compared to what we see in the States. So,
but I mean, we had it in the States previously, like 100 or so years ago. It eventually, went to more patriarchal white guy progressivism, but
a lot of the
Appalachia used to be a blue wall up until I want to say the 90s. Like Kentucky went for Jimmy Carter. I was just listening to
West Virginia voted for Clinton. That's not that long.
Yeah,
that's only a handful of presidents ago.
Yeah. Like I was just listening to the Trillbilly Workers Party. I feel like I talk about them a lot, but I love them. They had a Mike Davis, greatest historian of all time, as far as I'm concerned, and talked about like the political economy of rural America and the reasons why the working class of those areas has shifted so much politically.
I should add the addendum just in case anyone needs it. I don't think they will, but I'm talking about West Virginia voting for Bill Clinton. Obviously, they didn't vote for Hillary in 2016. Let's go to the phones, I guess, right? Let's go to here. Let's take this call. 408. What is your name and where are you calling from?
Hello there.
Hi, how are
This
you?
is Bill, but you can call me Slick. I'm from Arkansas.
Is this former President Bill Clinton?
I'm certainly trying to be. Hope it's working.
it's pretty good. It's not bad.
Speaking of Slick, y'all are looking pretty good too.
Oh,
I like
thank
those
you, Bill.
DC hacks who don't know Vince Foster from Princess D.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Somebody tried to tell me her name was Princess Di, but I didn't think that was very funny. Those people have suffered enough since we took care of her in that tunnel.
Whoa,
the
wait a
plot
minute.
thickens.
Wait a minute. Sir, President Bill Clinton, sir, kind sir, can you please explain what you mean? Are you telling us right now that Princess Di passed away during the Bill Clinton administration, right? Are you saying you had something to do with that?
Well, look here. Hillary has enough reasons to feel like a loser lately. So, true story. The reason we did it, Princess Di found out the truth, that there was no crack epidemic, that me and Hillary got together and made it up. She had to be stopped, and not even your racist uncle could stop us that time, good as he is.
Wow, I didn't know my racist uncle was onto something there. But also, I like how you have to say that.
Good.
I like how you have to point out that you and your wife needed to find the time to get together to plot this. Like, you didn't just see each other every day.
Well, things have been a bit tense sometimes. I'm sure you know about that. But I have to admit something. I'm not really Bill Clinton.
Oh, what?
What?
I am once again asking Neera Tanden and all her shitty supporters that don't know who Lee Atwater is to eat my whole ass, every last bite of my ass.
Is this
Bernie?
This is Bernie?
Is that you, T.O. Bernie?
Yes, I'm sorry, I just don't like Bill Clinton a lot, and I just had to get him. I had a chance, and I went for it.
Bernie, I got to tell you, your Bill Clinton's much better than yourself.
Well, you know what? Sometimes you just got to be good at things you're not supposed to be, and be bad at those things that you're supposed to be good at.
Bernie,
that's how it works in politics.
You're suddenly developing the President Obama speech pattern somehow.
Well,
is this like a double impression?
That will help me do my Obama.
Is this Obama pretending to be Bernie, pretending to be Bill Clinton? Because I'm not sure our brains can handle that.
I think we might have had enough, actually.
No, let's keep the inception
That would be
going,
a plot
guys.
twist indeed, but
Right. I will say I enjoyed the Bill Clinton. I enjoyed the moment where your Bernie was worse than your Bill.
If I may, just for 1 second here.
All right. One more second.
By the way, I just joined Twitter. My @ is fake John Cleese. I was the redneck before, as some people may remember.
All right.
Gotta do that self-promotion.
You
No
little
problem.
shapeshifter.
Thanks for calling in, buddy.
Yeah, I do what I can.
Stick with
Thank
the
you.
bill. Stick with the bill. Flesh that one out a bit more. I think you got something there, perhaps. Your Bernie.
No, I want to work on Obama and Reagan next.
All right. I think you should stick with what you got good to perfect it. But if you're one of those types, you got to keep on moving on to the next thing. I get you. I respect it. All right, man. Take care.
Cheers.
But definitely drop the Bernie.
I was tickled by it.
954. 954. No, the Bill was. I was impressed with the Bill and the little storyline behind Bill too. I enjoyed. 954. What's your name? Where you calling from? We might have a freezing issue on the phone calls here. I'm gonna restart.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there you go. I hear you. How you doing?
Oh, okay.
954.
I'm all right. It's Guy calling from Fort Lauderdale.
How you doing? What'd you like to talk about?
I'm great, thanks. Well, first of all, since you brought up Fortnite, I have to tell you, I play with my kids too. a blast.
It's a good
I
game.
mean, it's really fun to play with your kids. It's great to play with your kids. It's pretty healthy, I think.
Yeah, it's a good game because it's for all ages, really. I mean, maybe some people will say it's not because you do run around with guns and you are shooting people, but it's all cartoony
Not really.
violence. I mean,
yeah, but it's not even shooting. Yeah, it's not even shooting. Like a drone comes down and grabs the guy when you eliminate him. It's called an elimination.
Yeah, but you do have they do. It's called you are.
It's called an elimination.
Assault
It's
rifles,
called target
elimination.
I know, but think about how you get the rifles. It's pretty subversive, actually, because you're looting, right?
Right, that's true. You're loot, right? That's very true. That's very true.
So I don't know.
I think
there's actually pretty solid messaging
That's
there.
actually, I never even occurred to me that yeah, that is spot on. Maybe Epic Games is secretly pushing for the revolution. I don't know.
This and there was during the early part of this pandemic. Actually, it was before it became a pandemic here, when it was just in the news. This total bigot, Trumpy guy, was making fun of one of the other people on my squad with my son there, and he was making fun of his accent. He asked him if he had the COVID, if he had a coronavirus, because he had an accent, and he was like making fun of him. So I recorded him. I'm like, this is ridiculous, and I turned him in, and I'm pretty sure he got thrown off because I can't find his screen name anymore. So, they're kind of PC, I mean, it's okay. So, by the way, I got an awesome screen name that I changed it to right after the election, Poor Loser Trumpy. And I get a lot of positive feedback from that. So, if you can like switch your screen name every 2 weeks. And if you do it to something that's kind of, contemporary, it can actually, you can kind of goof around with it a little bit.
Right.
The
one issue for me
What's
is
that?
It's all under my son's username. Like his 5-year-old little brain picked the username, and I can't give people that username because I don't want people contacting my son when he's playing and being.
No, that's true.
Yeah,
no, I'm not
so
saying you
that's
should
where-
publish it. I'm going to change mine soon, anyways. I'm not like whatever, But dude, you got to get your own account so you can play with him, because that's a big part of the fun.
That's true, but we only got an Xbox, so I mean, we got one Xbox. I mean, I guess I
think with the new, if you get the new PS5, you can play two people can play on the console at the same time.
Oh, but that's simple. Just buy a new PS5. Thank you.
No, I mean, well, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I don't know if I assume that it doesn't work with the Xbox because it doesn't work with the old PS5 either. It does work with the PS4, like the one that came out just before the PS5, like the PS4 Plus or whatever it was.
Right. I mean, I think Fortnite might be one of those things where you could play with people on all platforms. It doesn't matter what they're playing on. I mean, I guess I could look into that. That's true. And I don't know if my Mac could run it. I have an old MacBook, but it's pretty, it's
you can, but it won't. It'll be real bad. Right. I actually play on a pretty new iPad when my son plays on a Switch, and it's fine. But now we can't play anymore because my iPad got kicked off. We can just play on the Switch. That's why I'm actually thinking about getting them one of these, consoles for Christmas or something.
If you can find them, they're hard to find out here.
Playing with them again.
Hard to find out here. But what would you like to talk about other than Fortnite, obviously?
Yeah, right. Look, I have an issue with the I'm just as far left as like any of you guys, honestly. But I'm really getting sort of frustrated with the lack of progress that we're making based on the strategy that we currently have of being extremely confrontational to every single Democrat that's not that isn't this wrong on most issues. And believe me, they're just as wrong on most issues as the Republicans, as far as I'm concerned. I agree.
Give me an example of someone. Give me an example of someone you have in mind, so we can just put a face to who you're talking about, so we can see where you.
I don't know. Like Jimmy. Like Jimmy Dore. I mean.
Well, yeah, but that's not. Nobody's. He's marginal at this point. Like, what's? Yeah. I mean, look. I
don't think he is, dude.
Well, I mean, we're very clear about.
Name
very clear about what we think about Dore. So can I just let's make
name
it a bit more
political
specific.
block of people that is doing the thing that you say they're doing.
Let me just make a point first, which is
okay.
that let me just make a point.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to say this about like for instance, there are certain people who had this idea, like I would call them loosely Warren people, who had this idea during the primary that I think Data for Progress might have did this, had a whole bunch of, these are the candidates we want for a cabinet. And they played the nice game I think you're suggesting. They were not confrontational with the party. And Biden has picked...
I think we should be confrontational. I just want to be clear. I do think we should be confrontational on issues. I just don't think we should be demonizing, other humans. I think we should try to learn more from Bernie about that fact.
But give an example, because you named someone who, I'm sorry, Matt.
Let me finish that point.
Yeah.
Because as of right now, they are 0 for 9 in getting Biden to listen to what they wanted to for cabinet picks. Mm-hmm. So I think confrontation is a part of politics. I guess my general message is confrontation is a part of politics that we need to be more, comfortable with and not less. But
yeah, being nice to the Democratic Party leadership has gotten the progressive wing of the party approximately nothing. Okay. Like all these people saying, oh, we just got to be nice and we can persuade Biden to move a tiny bit to the left on certain things. I'm sorry. That's delusional to use a word that our friend Michael used to use a lot.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't be confrontational, guys. Here's my point.
Can I finish
it's the way that you do it? If you avoid ad hominem attack, if you do what Bernie does, if you attack people's ideas and don't go after actual people personally that are on your side.
Bernie calls people billionaires. They call that ad hominem.
Jamie, finish your point.
Bernie attacks people's ideas.
If you go after the issues and tell them why they're wrong on these issues or those issues, it'll be much harder for them to demonize us. And I'm telling you, it just happens over and over again where, when we step over the line and tell them that they're idiots or that they're assholes, they don't know what they're doing, they're like, oh, another Bernie bro. And of course it doesn't work the same for us. We can't do that. But if we're Bernie-like, Bernie's popular for a reason. People like him for a reason, because they find him to be a genuine person.
But you're under the belief though that these people who do this to the left are acting in good faith. Do you not remember during the primaries when Bernie Sanders was this kind old Jewish man from Vermont that you're explaining to us does it the right way?
You're absolutely right. You're was absolutely right. None of these people in the Democratic establishment are doing it in good faith. None of them. I agree with you 1,000%. But I'm not trying to convince them of anything. I'm trying to use discourse with them to convince the general population to throw them the hell out.
So that's a different.
If we're going to talk about or with these people, it has to be in the way that Bernie talks to these people, and not in the way that a lot of us other leftists talk to them in a confrontational way that is not respectful.
Look. I asked you for an example, and you gave me Jimmy Dore, but that was an example of someone who does what you're saying. No, but that's not what I was asking. But that's not what I was asking, though. I was asking for an example of what you're talking about. Like, give me an example of someone the left has demonized as a person, and who has done that. Like, give me an example of that, because I don't know exactly what you're talking about. Like, I don't see what you're saying.
Well, admittedly, I'm sort of talking about the way people behave on social media more than anything else.
No, I know, but give me an example of what you've seen, what you're talking about, because your call obviously is because you saw something.
Right.
And by the way, social media is not real life.
Glenn is uncool. I'm sorry, but the way he demonizes too many people and not enough. He doesn't stay focused enough on.
Are you talking about Glenn Greenwald?
But again, wait, hold on. Again, you're giving me someone who you say is doing what you're saying. I want to hear the person.
No, I'm talking about no. I'm saying Glenn is doing what I'm saying. Glenn Greenwald.
I know, but I want someone. But you're saying, you're saying.
I wouldn't exactly call him a leftist.
Are you saying the left demonizes Glenn Greenwald and he's one of those poor?
No. I'm saying Glenn Greenwald demonizes people too often.
But that's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking you for the other side. Who is someone demonized by the left, and what does the left say about them that upsets you?
Glenn demonizes a lot of people that he disagrees with. I'm using Glenn as an example of somebody
is this you,
who
David
is a person
Feldman?
that practices this on the left.
But
I consider Glenn to be somebody on the left.
I get the usual.
Well, agree to disagree on that.
No, okay, but that aside, I get the usual people that are seen as the toxic leftists. But I'm asking, who is on the receiving end? Give me an example of someone on the receiving end of this and what is said about them.
Oh, dude, I mean, every time that he has something to say about a Democrat,
I think you should. Okay,
specific example, or we can move on.
It's not the who. It's the fact that it's too much a part of his.
This is a general impression you feel.
But the guy is like one of the most skilled.
I mean, because are you talking about Neera Tanden, who has like a lot of power? And is someone
I would actually give her as an example. Although I admit she's marginal because she's freaking disgusting, and I can't stand her. Like it's hard for me to contain myself.
But see, I haven't seen anyone.
About her. And by the way.
I haven't seen anyone ever attack her on a personal level. It's always for what she's advocated for. It's always for that email about taking the Libya's oil. It's always about.
And then she'll
also,
highlight
everyone who voted in the primary against Bernie Sanders for Joe Biden. Most of those people do not know who Neera Tanden is and do not give a shit about Neera Tanden. It has nothing to do with why people vote how they do.
You're right about that, and you're right. The thing that they do is they watch the media and they watch what they have to say about Bernie and the fact that the media spins everything.
But you cannot placate those people; they will find something.
We give them too much ammunition.
No, we don't. We got to move on.
They make it
talking about the media. Like people on MSNBC and CNN, as if they're demons. Like they're demented.
I see what you're saying, but I think I'm pretty sure we all think you're wrong. But I see what you're saying. But here's the thing, though. From what you said,
none of you have friends who are institutional or establishment Democrats or Republicans?
I mean, I know people who truthfully don't pay attention to that stuff. Most of those people, to be honest with you, very few people honestly pay attention.
No, but what about somebody that does pay attention to them?
What do they say? They just say, Glenn.
You don't have any friends that think differently?
I do. What now? What's the next question?
So how do you talk to them? I'm sure you don't talk to them the way you would talk about Neera Tanden, who probably agrees with them on most things.
No, I would delineate my problems with. I would delineate my problems with Neera Tanden, which is that I think she's a hatchet person, meant to be in meetings to suggest things like, let's take Libya's oil wealth. And I don't think they would agree with that. I think they would understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I look, I understand your point, but what I'm saying is that you should focus on that, Matt.
But here's my problem. I have a problem with what you're saying. I just want to say this is because I think what Matt Binder was asking about specifics is important because otherwise this is just an impression we're airing about the left. And I don't think it's well substantiated, frankly. I don't think the left does have behavioral problems.
I'm just on the phone here, dude, and I don't have like a web link that I can give you over the phone.
Well, call in when you got something specific. We can go over a case study.
If your best example of a leftist being a jerk is Glenn Greenwald, I'm sorry. Okay. You don't have a leg to stand on.
An opposite example.
One more minute. Give one example, and then we gotta let you go. Right?
The way that Sam goes after Jimmy.
But Jimmy, you think your centrist friends care about Jimmy Dore? In fact,
Sam
they'll probably cheer Sam on for going after Jimmy Dore.
Sam just gave Jimmy props.
What I'm telling you is that this sort of look. You wanted an example. You can't. These are examples that are purely like they're incidents that happen. It's not like somebody has a there's not like a channel that you go to and see all of the leftist meme talk. I'm just saying that I think that the mistake that we make is that we didn't learn enough from Bernie that you can get a lot more by talking about ideas than you can talking about people. You can get a lot farther that way.
I gotta let you go. I appreciate the call. Feel free to call back in when you have a specific example. All right. Take care.
All right, guys. Thanks. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to.
Bernie talked about billionaires.
Really quick. All I could recall from this conversation, it hit me right away, is you guys remember it was one of the early primary states this year. And the MSNBC interviewed a woman at a diner and asked her who she voted for, and she said she went in not knowing exactly who she was going to vote for, and she ended up going and voting for Bernie because of all the shit they threw at him on MSNBC that she felt was unwarranted, and that really pissed her off. Mm-hmm. That is something that made her go out and vote for Bernie. The opposite of what this guy is saying. Like, people see that the establishment Democrats basically tag team and team up on the left for basically ridiculous nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. It has nothing to do with policy, and many times is taken in completely bad faith just so they can get what they want. And that's what pisses people off. Not you going after the people in power.
Yeah,
that doesn't anger most people.
Yeah, no. The confrontational strategy, I believe, is a good one. I believe if you're looking at left-wing Democrats, like not just Bernie, AOC, right, the Squad, Jamal Bowman, they keep it very substantive. They're not doing what maybe a few Bernie bros on Twitter might be doing what this guy says, but they're not important on the political scene. And just to finish what I was trying to say before, the idea that we can somehow persuade Biden and his team to move to the left by being nice to them is nonsense. That's not happening. We can't do that. The Democratic Party leadership is always going to care more about what John Kasich thinks than what people like us think. I think a better way to think about it is, how do we extract concessions from the bourgeois state as currently managed by Joe Biden? I think we're going to get a lot more mileage out of that framework. And the answer, as always, is we have to build sufficient working class power, organizational and institutional power, in order to extract these concessions. And that power must be radical, it must be confrontational, and it must not flinch. So I hope that that's the mold that people are thinking in as we go forward, because we have a lot of work to do, and the leadership is bad, folks. It's bad.
And just to maybe make his point a little bit better, like, I don't think he was specifically talking about the leadership. I think he was talking about, I don't know, he might know somebody who works for the State Department who hates Bernie, it sounds like, right? And it's like, I don't know, like, if they're following Neera Tanden and all those types of people online, if that's their political ideology, frankly, like, those aren't going to be our voters. I don't know, like. Right. And they're not going to give us much. Frankly, you need to do what Trump did at the RNC and say, we need to get to a point where we're in power, and then those people will fall in line. But like, as far as that's why I found it really frustrating, because I don't know. I am okay with, as far as rank and file Democrats and people who aren't in leadership being like publicly like a posture of persuasiveness towards them. I think that is better than, calling them shills and say they're definitely going to default to fascism, right? Like, I think that's ridiculous. But yeah, anyway, we can move on.
They're not our friends.
I mean, I apologize for letting that call go on for so long, but I really was hoping he would give an example, because like you said, those are the same accusations that are always thrown out, but there's never an example given. It's always, either they're complaining that they are actually receiving a critique on their policy ideas and they can't handle that, so they revert to some sort of bullshit of them being attacked as a person, which is frankly 9 times out of 10 not the case. And then B, that 1 out of 10 times, it's usually, like you said, some rando dunce on Twitter just tweeting at someone you're a shill, which is just like, that's really what you're going to pay attention to? Like, that's just unimportant. No one cares about that.
Yeah.
The hypothetical centrist friends you're talking about do not care about someone being called a shill on Twitter. It's just, that's our bubble. And it's dumb that we even pay attention to it, to be quite frank.
Oh, for sure. But if you are going to judge it based on that, I would say that every political figure has psychotic supporters on Twitter who say horrible things to people on the other side. Like, talk to Breonna Joy Gray about some of the racist, sexist abuse that she's received. It's ridiculous.
Oh, absolutely. Let's go to this sound, because this really struck me, because this is a piece. It was a news segment that was a spontaneous news segment on a local station in Portage, Michigan, I believe is the name of the city or town. It is in Michigan, though. And a news station was setting up a on the street segment. And while they were getting ready, a business owner started yelling something behind them. So the reporter turned around and I guess on the spot changed the segment to find out what was bothering this business owner. And it's really, listen to this sound, because it was really interesting to me how the news reporter sort of framed it. I'm not attacking him because, it was, like I said, on the spot. He didn't know what he was gonna get himself into. He sort of promoted it as just like, if you're going to come scream behind the news, remember, we'll always be asking questions. And it's like, okay, but I think what this guy was saying was way more important than just like news reporter ready to go on the spot.
I agree with you, Matt. I just want to make one quick point that I do think,
go ahead.
I know local news reporters, and it's a scary time to be a local news reporter out here too, because of, I think, interactions like this could go much worse. But I agree with you about what you said about the validity of what this guy's trying to say here.
Right. So in no way I want to put down the reporter for not being able to, to put something forward more interesting about what's actually said by the business owner. But I just want people to focus on that part of it, though, when they're watching this clip. So let's play it.
The details on why the judge said no. Tavarius, is everything okay?
Okay. Our government leaders have abandoned me. Are you the owner? $4 trillion of stimulus money. They gave it to who? Special interest groups and campaign donors. I'm Dave Morse. I own the place. So what's going on? What's going on? You know what's going on. Tell me. You tell me. Hey, we got a government that has taken the stimulus money.
What happened? Oh, there we go. It's freezing up.
Brendan, I think you're cutting out a little bit. Let me try to take over this here. 1 second.
I hear you guys fine.
I feel everybody needs to stand up. Hey, listen, there was enough money to give every family in this
here. I'm just gonna replay it.
Play from the beginning. Turn the volume up too. It's a little bit low if you can.
Okay, 1 second here. Just pull this up.
It's worth listening to, so I don't think it's a problem to play it again.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, take your time. Jamie, how was your week gone so far?
Oh, fine, I guess. I'm reading Capital for like the big kid unabridged version for the first time. That's pretty exciting. It's I gotta say that Marx was a smart boy. He had some good ideas, but I do feel like there are some things he could have put a little more concisely. I'm sure I'm going to get roasted for that, but
sorry, just so it's easier for Dorsey to edit, guys. Let's get right to this clip here. I got it ready.
On why the judge said no. Tavarius, is everything okay?
Okay. Our government leaders have abandoned me. Are you the owner? $4 trillion of stimulus money. They gave it to who? Special interest groups and campaign donors. I'm Dave Morse. I own the place. So what's going on? What's going on? You know what's going on. Tell me. You tell me. Hey, we got a government that has taken the stimulus money. They gave it to special campaign donors. They gave it to special interests. They abandoned me, and they have put me in a position where I have to fight back. Okay? So do you feel that this is the right thing to do? Absolutely. I feel everybody needs to stand up. Hey, listen, there was enough money to give every family in this country $20,000
That's right.
to go home for 2 months. They chose to give it to special interests and campaign donors, the Kennedy Space Center, and they abandoned us. So you could have given me money. I'd gladly walk away for 60 days and let this virus settle down. I'm not going to do it alone. Okay? Are you going to continue to violate the state's orders and stay open? State order. This isn't an order. This is a conspiracy. This is a tyranny. What do you want to tell other restaurant owners who... Wake up. Stand up. This is America. Be free. I got patriots coming out supporting me.
All right. So, I mean, from it's sort of unclear. So I don't want to, it's not quite clear, I should say, because he doesn't say exactly who he supports or whatever. But from the wording he uses, I think you could pretty much assume he's someone who at least leans right. But what he's saying is accurate, which means to me that people just understand that, if they received money to help sustain them throughout this pandemic, they would have been fine doing what their government told them to do in terms of state government and local government, I should add, because their federal government didn't really give them much of anything. And this is someone who's talking about, this whole shutdown being the shutdowns being a conspiracy, and how the patriots are coming to, support him for having his restaurant stay open. Again, this guy is saying if he was given money, in his scenario is the $25,000 he heard. I don't know if that's accurate. Have you heard that, Matt? That 20,000 could have been given.
I thought it was something like 13, but I think it's a lot of thousands. They could have just gave to people, right? And he's right that we gave it to corporations instead. I mean, he calls it special interest
and the stock market.
Yeah, that's where his ideology comes in, right? He thinks the Kennedy Space Center, and it's not like, right. I mean, a lot of businesses have got those funds too. A lot of businesses are doing really good right now by frankly being able to cut certain hours for people while getting giant stimulus funds from. It's just the luck of the draw with those funds.
Yeah,
and apparently his business didn't get it.
I mean, he's right. There was very little help for small businesses.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's even really fair to say that he maps neatly onto the right of the political spectrum, because the idea that you should give businesses and people money and let them stay home until the pandemic subsides, that is a left-wing position that is not being advocated by the Democrats or the Republicans right now.
Yep. Right, but here's the interesting thing, though. I think this guy is mapped like, and to me,
he
I forgot to mention it. Matt totally called it with the Kennedy Space Center line. That is totally a right-wing talking point to go after the Kennedy Space Center.
And most people's politics are pretty incoherent, and they have a mixture of right-wing and left-wing positions.
But
they don't have a mixture of left. Yeah, they don't have a mixture of left-wing and right-wing sources. Like this guy's figuring out the reality of it, even through the bullshit that's talking to him about this Kennedy Space Center the entire time.
Exactly. And that's what's so interesting about what he's saying. Here is a guy who's almost certainly someone on the right. I mean, maybe he's not super political, ideological. He might not be arguing
in terms
with this
of
guy
media
on
diet.
Twitter. Yeah, but in terms of media diet, he probably watches Fox News, maybe listens to Limbaugh, your average older sort of, Republican. But just on his own. Right, exactly. But just on his own, from his own experience running his business during the pandemic, he has landed on this. Honestly, it's socialism. And to him, that sounds completely fair, accurate, and the right thing to do, regardless of everything else he's heard.
In response to an accurate assessment of what the government's done, which is just completely right checks that. And he's near, I don't think that math is exactly right, but he's close enough to get the point across. Mm-hmm. And we could have, and that's because guess what, guys, this isn't hypothetical. Other countries have done this. They did this. And that's why, for instance, Thailand and wherever you want to go in Asia, really China's having pool parties. So
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. I mean, when it comes down to it, the reason to play this clip is basically to say our elected leaders, the people who we want to take care of us, including especially the Democrats, because they're the ones who should be fighting for what this guy advocated for on his own doing. They're blowing the messaging. They're blowing what they should be fighting for. That's extremely popular, even to this guy who thinks the Kennedy Space Center is one of the problems here. Mm-hmm. And they're blowing it by, because these are people who have.
I think it's the Kennedy Center for the Arts, probably. Actually.
Yeah. But whatever he was talking about, this guy would become a Democratic voter, I assure you. And so would all of his buddies, if the Democrats got out there and got him his 10,000, 13,000, 15,000, whatever it actually is, to stay closed during the pandemic. That's how you win people. That's how you politic. That's how you play politics. And they're just failing so hard. And it's just frustrating to see, especially when watching this guy just make this point on his own after consuming all this right-wing bullshit.
Of course, there's a real opening there, and the left shouldn't abandon folks like this, although, small business owners historically have not always been the base for a socialist movement, but things are all scrambled right now. New alliances are being formed. We don't really know what's going to happen, and you shouldn't be leaving any votes on the table. Also, I really think the perception is, I'm sure there are some small facts that would refute this, but no help is coming. The Democrats are not getting it done for whatever reason. The Republicans don't want to get it done. So given the choice between a lockdown and no help, and no lockdown and no help, people who need to make money will choose the latter, right? Like that's just basic math.
And Pelosi's got to have a bit of a fire underneath her to fix her mistake, because that is why we're in this mess. She gave them everything they want with that bailout. Now McConnell can just sit and do whatever he wants. And like, I frankly don't even, sure, McConnell's a big problem. I think Pelosi didn't want Trump to get reelected. And guess what? So you got what you wanted. And we're still dealing with this pandemic. Figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Word.
You know, the interesting thing here too is, you know, there was a few pieces that came out after the election when Donald Trump was able to become literally the second highest vote getter in American history, right behind Biden. How did this happen when Trump is so hated? And you know, he gained in more votes with blacks and Latinos than he did in 2016. How did this happen? I think it is highly underrated just how much everyone joked about it, but I really do think it made a huge difference. Everyone receiving those $1,200 checks with Donald Trump's name on it. I mean, people like getting money, and they think people who aren't as politically engaged think they got money from Donald Trump. Out of the kindness of his heart, he took out his checkbook and wrote everyone a check. And that's won people over, quite frankly.
And just broadly, when you've given over your economy to financiers who have people like over barrel on loan repayments, giving people money is good policy.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
What's this IM from Brendan saying? Jeff Stein, the journalist, says only Josh Hawley has called for another round of $1,200 checks. Josh Hawley being a Republican.
But is that true? I don't think he's the only one.
That's what Jeff Stein said. This has been his beat since.
But this is the problem with the Democrats.
Exactly.
Like, what the fuck is Pelosi doing?
She could at least be calling for things like that, and then show very clearly to people how the Republicans are the ones blocking it.
Only Senate Republican he's seen so far call for a relief package to include 1,200. That's where. Not to defend Pelosi, but we got to be accurate here. It's just, I mean,
that is his job too. And it's the sort of thing where it's like McConnell's not mad at him for saying that shit, because it's, you know, that's the propaganda game they're playing, which is what leftists and supposed leftists who always propagate the Hawley stuff. And there's a few like prime contributors online never contextualize is that this is a game for them. He's not doing anything that's actually harming his standing within the Republican Party.
Right. I can't let Brendan spread misinformation on this show. Sorry, Brendan. Got to shut you down. Alex Jones over here. You guys want to? Got really silent. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, Brendan.
My internet connection is unstable, so I'm just trying to stay
okay. Okay, let's go back to the phones. Yeah. 847, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Matt.
Hey, what's up? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
It's Nancy Pelosi, Comrade Nancy.
Oh, I mean, I honestly could not tell if you were a man or a woman just by you going,
get to work.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, what are you doing calling into a show right now?
I just wanted to thank you, Matt, for whipping all those votes for me.
Right, no problem. I mean, listen, I could not let Brendan attack you just now by saying that I know for a fact there's been, at the very least, House Democrats calling for another round of stimulus checks. And if the Senate Democrats have not done that, then in my opinion, that's more on Schumer than it is you, Speaker Pelosi. So yes, I will defend you on that one.
Call me Comrade. Call me Comrade.
Comrade Pelosi.
Brendan. Don't you know that this will all be taken care of? I was on the breadlines yesterday.
Oh wow, how was it?
It was good. My friend, Comrade Peck, Jamie Peck, she and I were in our new caucuses, bread and ice cream, which we started in DSA. And in fact, that was where Jamie spent Thanksgiving with me. And
right.
We had our Thanksgiving dinner with our bread and ice cream caucuses. It was very safe. Don't worry. I kept my mask on, unlike the last time in that hair salon. But and we visited the people and we talked with them. And I appreciate you whipping votes for me, Matt. I sent you some ice cream.
No, well, I didn't receive it yet. You better contact. I think DeJoy is purposely making sure your ice cream delivery isn't arriving at my house. I think Trump is targeting you and your ice cream packages.
That bastard, that other bastard. Well, that's terrible. I'm sorry, dear Matt. I just want to say there will be payments. There will be payments. People can calm down. But the reason why there's no state, though, there's no state aid, is I don't believe in the state.
That's good to hear, Speaker Pelosi. I do have to say that these calls would probably work better if Miss Speaker Pelosi, if you weren't yourself cracking up during them.
I'm not cracking up. I'm not cracking up. This is no laughing matter. I was on the bread lines last week. I was there, and people are dying. And I'm delivering. I'm negotiating with this guy. Is it Donald Trump?
That's his name. The guy you've been negotiating with for the past 4 years. That is correct. Well,
of course, I know him. I know him. Anyways, Matt, I just wanted to thank you. I will be sending more ice cream. I'll be calling that bastard, that rat bastard, DeJoy. I'll give him a call tonight. And Comrade Tech, are you there?
I'm here.
I just wanted to thank you for starting the caucus with me in DSA bread and ice cream.
Oh, of course. I mean, I thought that I liked the Emerge Caucus, which is the communist caucus that I am currently in, but I guess I also needed to start a new one with you. So
there you go.
No problem.
Who would not start a DSA caucus with Nancy Pelosi? I mean, if the opportunity arises, you snatch Matt, that opportunity. I'd be happy to. In fact, I just realized I have to renew my my DSA membership at the end of this month. So thanks for the reminder, Speaker Pelosi.
You better get on that.
I will.
Yeah, you got to choose a gang.
They're just too far right wing.
Well, right. We'll do. And, thank you for the call, Speaker Pelosi. And I just want to say, regardless of anyone else's feelings about you, I think we all agree that you'd be much better than Hakeem Jeffries. So please stay in the fight. Make sure you remain. If you and
I disagree.
Jeffries are you serious?
I just want to change. Yeah, I just want to break up the continuity. I think Jeffries is bad. I don't see anything that's.
Well, look, are we talking about Comrade Pelosi here or normal?
I would take normal Pelosi over Jeffries, to be quite honest with you. I think Jeffries is bad news. I've never seen someone so openly more hostile to the left.
No. I think he might be marginally more hostile to the left, but I think Nancy Pelosi's the continuity of power there is a real problem, and I want to see that addressed.
I see what you're saying, but I don't think Jeffries. I think Jeffries would be worse.
Is this another Matt? I will send him some ice cream. What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Cookie dough.
I would not eat whatever ice cream Pelosi sends you after saying you want to see Jeffries beat him. It might be laced with.
I'll send you some cookie dough, and then you'll change your tune.
Oh, there you go. So it's okay. All right. Well, honestly, if Democrats thought about this in general, sent ice cream to it's more than ice cream, but
how about just checks?
Checks to every American. Yes, they'd probably get a lot of people changing their tune. There you go.
And call them Biden bucks and have Joe Biden eat an ice cream cone on the thing, and then we're really talking.
That's true. Joe Biden doesn't like ice cream.
Right. All right. Thanks, Comrade Pelosi. Take care.
Bye, Comrade Matt.
All right. See you on the bread lines. Critical support for Comrade Pelosi.
Jamie.
All right. We'll do.
I think we might need to stop taking calls from major politicians for the day, maybe.
Yeah, no more. Yeah, if you're calling in and unless you actually are, if you actually are Donald Trump, then I'll take your call. But other than that, it will pass. Matt, I gotta disagree with you on Jeffries, though. I Pelosi at the very least seems like she is interested at making sure she appeases the left, even when she just throws them a bone to make sure that everyone's lock in step. Jeffries, I honestly can picture him.
I just feel like Jeffries, man. I feel like to the extent that Pelosi has a successor cultivated is Jeffries, and so it's just like, well, let's get on with it then.
I don't know. It doesn't really make a difference. They're both terrible.
But why not?
I do agree with that.
why not take the extra time to see if someone new arises, though, if this is what we're stuck with right now?
Well, it's possible, but somebody new could arise under Jeffries when he's, more explicitly, the problem and not.
I think that'd be much harder, to be honest.
And I also think, just from a winning election standpoint, Pelosi is a liability. So if we're talking about, defund causing people elections, I see Nancy Pelosi in a lot more negative ads than defund the police in this cycle. So I think maybe we should address that too. So I don't know. I basically I don't disagree entirely with where you're coming from on Jeffries, but I also don't think it's that big of it. I'm wary of that argument for Pelosi at this point.
Right. I sort of am focusing more on the inter-Democratic Party stuff than in terms of the next speaker than what the right will do. Obviously, they're going to demonize.
But isn't he synchronized with that? Isn't Jeffries hasn't he just been the one doing the bidding for Pelosi on that stuff? Or you think he's been freelancing by attacking the squad?
Oh, no, I think I honestly think that's just his own thing, to be honest with you.
I mean, I think Pelosi should do something about it, but yeah, fair enough.
I mean, I'm who knows? Maybe she said something. I mean, I don't know. Again, not to defend her. She could also be telling him to do this. I honestly don't know. But just the way he does it, it just seems much more, it seems much more personal to him in terms of him being in New York, and maybe he sees the entire, the squad, and he sees the rise of AOC and Bowman, and basically a New York State Senate and Assembly that's getting more and more left wing, and he sees his own seat possibly in danger. I mean, get a leftist in there who properly represents that district, and he's got a real problem on his hands in my estimation. The only problem right now is that there is no left wing challenger in his district that represents that district.
Well, it would be very difficult.
Can I just say, I'm not saying Jeffries is good. Also, I'm saying that the marginality difference between him being ideologically worse than Pelosi, I have other things that I'm weighing against that. But go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, I'm just saying, as we all know, this is not my area of the most expertise, but I have talked to some of my friends in DSA who are part of the electoral working group. I was like, why don't we just go after Hakeem Jeffries? He's terrible. It would be a huge deal. When we got AOC in there, but it's really, he's very deeply entrenched. He's got a lot of constituent services. He brings a lot of pork home to his community. It would be very difficult. And I think at the moment, our resources might be better spent doing what we're doing right now, which is trying to elect a number of socialists to New York City Council and build from the ground up. But certainly we would like to, and maybe we'll be able to in the future.
Yeah. It is definitely very different between Joe Crowley and Hakeem Jeffries. I mean, it's definitely not the same situation in terms of how they represent their district.
And they're going to see it coming next time too. I don't think we're going to be able to catch them sleeping again in the way that we did with Joe Crowley, but you never know. The establishment is also very cocky, so we will see.
Yeah. All right, let's go to back to the phones with let's see. 808. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, this is Mike from CA. I'm your replacement Mike because I've heard the last one was a little bit defective. So the Mike agency sent me over.
How are you doing, Mike, from the Mike agency?
I'm doing great. I'm actually calling because I've got a story for you guys. This is one that I intended for Sam, but I'm excited to speak to you guys too. So I want to take you guys back to April for a second. Imagine the early days of the pandemic, just when quarantine began. Things are going insane in New York. Something happened to me in April that intersects with a lot of all the politics that you guys talk about. I went jogging in my local city, California, and when I was out there, a unmanaged tree dropped its tree branch and clubbed me over the head.
Oh.
And it has been such an insane story, insane journey, recovering from this massive injury during the pandemic, and the fact that this injury happened to me because a large corporation didn't do its diligence and maintain the park that I ran through. And that intersects with all these things that Sam, the left wing, is always talking about. And also just dealing with, frankly, health insurance, all these aspects of the medical industry. It's been a really remarkable story. And I really just wanted to thank everyone who's been on the left and working on this, on all these issues that deal with, health insurance, Medicare for all, and also holding corporations responsible. It's really brought to home for me in my personal life how close we all are to the edge. And I wanted to express the last few months my appreciation for you guys and Majority Report and everybody associated with it. For working so hard for everybody, because we really need each other's support, especially during the pandemic.
Well, I appreciate this call. It's a breath of fresh air amid a bunch of callers who are pretending to be politicians and trying to argue with us. So good to hear this. I hope everything's doing better now, or as well as it could be.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, sure. Everybody. If the next person to tell me that I'm lucky to be able to walk or anything, they're gonna, get shanked or something, frankly. But that aside,
they'll be lucky to be able to walk after asking you that.
Say I'm lucky to have this happen during the pandemic because, what was I going to do anyway? I have to stay home, right?
Right. That's, well, always look on the bright side, right? Thanks for the call. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. PSA to callers. All right, guys, you don't have to do an impression. You don't have to pretend to be someone you're not. We like you just the way you are. It's fine.
Right. Exactly. Did Sam play that clip of that woman in at the Michigan House Oversight Committee? The one who the pool book lady?
The really professional one?
Yes, the one who's
he did not.
I mean, I feel like, did he explicitly say he wanted to cover it? Because that's what everyone's talking about today. So I feel like we should play it. No? All right, let's do it. So, Rudy Giuliani's got his experts. He's got his witnesses, his people he's putting out there to basically prove that the election was a fraud and that voter fraud was running rampant, and basically got to throw all these votes out and declare Trump the winner, right? There's been very many questionable, to say the least, experts that Giuliani has had take the stand at these various, well, this one specifically was at a hearing by the Michigan House Oversight Committee. Very many questionable people that Giuliani has called, but none more interesting, I guess to say is a kind word to put it, than this lady. Let's listen to what she has to say and the situation that happens here.
The poll book is completely off. Completely off.
Off by 30,000?
I'd say that poll book is off by over 100,000. That poll book, why don't you look at the registered voters on there? How many registered voters are on there? Do you even know the answer to that?
No, I guess I'm trying to get to the bottom of this here.
Zero. There's zero.
So my question then is, if the
guess how many? Wait, what about the turnout rate? 120%.
Let's let Representative Johnson ask his question, please.
So the poll book number. Okay, there's two things that could happen here. Either the poll book number, if ballots were counted multiple times, there's two options. Option number one is that the poll book numbers are not going to match.
They don't.
The actual. Not by thousands and thousands of
votes.
Pause
it for a second. I just want to point out here. I said it at the beginning. It's like a little hint of what was to come, but I want to really stress out here. Her slurring, her speech is so bad that when she says poll book, it really does sound like she's saying pool book, doesn't it? I mean, when I first heard this clip, I was like, what is she talking about? I had to look up, and I was like, nothing's coming up for. Oh, she's saying poll. Jesus Christ!
I just assumed that it was some wonky electoral thing that I didn't know about.
You thought she was saying pool too, right?
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh God, I really know nothing about this stuff. I don't know what a pool book is.
Right. Good. I mean, I only knew because I went back in the day, I would work the polls. But like when I first heard her say it, I was like, pool book? Is that something that they do in Michigan, maybe? I don't know. But continue.
Not by thousands and thousands of votes. That's not what we see right now.
You
That's
take a look
option
again.
number one.
Take a look again.
Option number two is that they essentially were filling in names of people who didn't vote.
Dead people too?
So is that?
Let's
I guess
let
is that
Representative
your suggestion?
Johnson ask his question, and then when
I
he's
thought that
done,
was his answer. Okay.
Well, I guess that's my question here is why we're not seeing the poll book off by 30,000 votes. That's not the case.
What did you guys do? Take it and do something crazy to it?
I'm just saying the numbers are not off by 30,000 votes. So
I know what
are you
I
saying
saw.
that they're filling in?
I know what I saw, and I
I'm ordering a
signed
drink.
something saying that if I'm wrong, I can go to prison. Did you?
okay,
I'm just trying to ask you a legitimate question here.
Yeah, let's let Representative Johnson ask his question, and then don't interrupt him. And then, if you want to respond to it, that's fine. And did you have more, Representative?
Yeah, I guess I just want to keep following back.
Can we
up
get some
with the
Jell-O
poll books.
shots?
Are we saying that the poll book is either wildly off, or that they are
Wildly
filling
off.
in names?
It's wildly off, and dead people voted, and illegals voted.
Okay.
So that's my answer.
Oh man.
I mean, there's a moment there. I don't know if you caught it, but if you're watching on YouTube and not just listening to the podcast, there's a moment there where even Giuliani like reaches over and says like, just you're making me look bad. You're making me look crazy, says Giuliani.
Rudy, who farted earlier in the proceedings. I think.
We have that too.
Do we want to play that?
Yeah, but I just want to plug an Alex Perrine article that kind of explains what's happened here, which is called Splinter, the long lucrative right-wing grift is blowing up in the world's face. This is from April 2017. But basically, the idea is they kept cultivating these lunatics to the point where they weren't in control of them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look what's happening. Look what's happening today, where Newt Gingrich was on team Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell, and all of a sudden they're out there in Georgia saying, "Don't vote." Those are those two QAnon lawyers who are trying to help Giuliani overturn the election. Sidney, by the way, the Trump administration, Trump campaign, put out a letter like a week ago saying, this woman who was standing next to Giuliani at the press conferences and talking with him and clearly representing us, she's never worked for us before. We have Newt Gingrich out there today saying how the two of them are crazy because they did an event in Georgia yesterday saying telling Republicans not to vote in the special Senate elections because you can't trust them. It's going to be rigged there too, which obviously the Republicans don't want their base to not go and vote in the two races that are going to decide the future of the Senate and, in essence, the future of this country. So you're seeing like an all-out internal war going on between the Republican establishment and the far-right fringe of which is, you call it fringe, but it's probably has encapsulated the entire Republican base at this point, to be quite honest with you.
Well, the QAnon energy in particular is interesting because it's less partisan than you might think it is. And it's less partisan than it started out as. They still love Trump, obviously. But like I was reading, I don't know if it's an article, a newsletter or whatnot that my producer Andy wrote about the QAnon phenomenon. And apparently it's spreading to like some left-wing wingnuts as well. There's some crossover with anti-vax people. There's some crossover with like the wellness community, like we talked about earlier. And they actually don't like this deep partisan polarization that's going on. They're like, both parties are horrible. They're full of satanic pedophiles, and Trump is the savior. So it's getting kind of interesting. I mean, probably it's not going to result in anything good for the left. Don't get me wrong. But it's evolving in some very weird ways, and I don't think we've seen the end of it yet. But I do appreciate that lady's drunk sorority girl energy. And if I didn't know what she was saying, I don't know. I might want to party with her.
I mean, this is what they're seeing right now in the Republican Party. It's basically this lady times their entire base, and this is what they've created a monster once again. They've done it again, like they seem to do every couple of every election cycle. They create a new monster, and this time it's not just a future presidential candidate, a single person. This time it's an entire new base that have basically just transformed every Republican, or at least 90% of them, give or take, into QAnon-believing far-right lunatics. I don't know how else to put it. Like, this lady believes that 100,000 dead people, undocumented immigrants, and just magical votes that appeared out of thin air just basically came into Michigan, and that's what decided the election. And she wants to see them all thrown out and Trump be declared the winner of the state. That's not what's happening in reality, but they are trying to manifest that in their own reality.
Yeah. I kind of have a sick urge to get her on our side now. I just want to hear someone talk about communism in that voice. We need to expropriate the bourgeoisie, all right? Just get together, proletariat.
Listen, Colonel Merckx had a great. He said, I'm trying to think of what else she would say. That would be. She really does sound. She sounds like the Irma Gerd, like SNL drunk, like the thing they do on the Drunk Girl at a Party or whatever it's called. Cecily Strong's character.
Y'all just jealous of me.
Yeah.
Do we have that?
Do we have Giuliani farting?
The answer.
Have a point of order.
The answer that I gave you is they didn't bother to interview a single witness. Just like you, they don't want to know the truth. Well, you probably know the truth.
Oh my God! Can we see that again?
Yeah, please.
The answer.
Have a point of order.
The answer that I gave you is they didn't bother to interview a single witness. Just like you, they don't want to know the truth. Well, you probably know the truth.
Listen,
Wow.
I am completely sympathetic as someone who does streams normally of like, you move in your chair and like your chair makes like the squishing noise or whatever. But that was not that type of chair. He did not make any movement. The lady next to him clearly heard it and immediately did like a spit take and looked at him. Giuliani farted. And it was quite honestly, that's the type of fart you would want if you were like a Foley artist and you needed your character on screen for the movie you were doing the sound for.
That's why I was suspicious, because a reporter tweeted this out, and so it's real as far as we know. But it sounds like a sort of platonic ideal of a fart sound.
It's the most perfect sounding fart. It's like with those like the things you sit on, you place under someone's chair and they sit on it.
A whoopee cushion.
It sounds exactly like the perfect whoopee cushion type fart. It's just too perfect.
These people are disgusting. We know this.
I mean, it was a beautiful fart, which is not something you can normally say about anything Giuliani does, but it was
might be his only redeeming quality.
Yes.
Perfect farts, 10 out of 10. He's found his calling.
Right. Yes.
He's a sound effect artist. He makes sound effects with his butt. I wonder if he can do any others.
Right. Terrible noises coming out of this end. Nice, beautiful sounds coming out the other. Right. Let's
get that on the soundboard.
The Giuliani fart. Yes. Yeah. It really is
baffling.
baffling.
We'll play that sound when people start being annoying on the phone.
And you guys want to, just because this is something that just happened yesterday, and I don't know if Sam will get to it, but and it might be too New York centric for the first half of the show. But what happened in Staten Island the other day is ridiculous. I mean, talk about a complete 180 from that Michigan business owner, basically pouring his heart out as to why he needs to stay open. And if he was just given money, then he would have been happy even to close for 2 months so that the virus could have died down. But instead he's forced to open so he can, pay his bills. This in Staten Island the other day is ridiculous. Basically, you had a slew of Trump supporters show up at this bar that's been openly flaunting that they've been violating the New York guidelines, COVID guidelines.
Staten Island Autonomous Zone, baby.
Right. So much so that I believe this bar owner was arrested, and that's why they went down there, right? Something happened. He was ticketed or arrested, but they were just like openly flaunting it because Staten Island is in one of those zones that's seeing a huge rise in coronavirus. Not surprising. There was a study I saw that basically if you lay a map over which areas of New York City voted for Trump in the majority voted for Trump in 2016, and which areas of New York City are experiencing a over 3% bump in coronavirus transmission rate. There's a pretty large overlap, and Staten Island is Trump country in New York. So let's play this clip of these people basically protesting at this bar against Cuomo, which I'm always for anti-Cuomo stuff, but not when it comes at the expense of people's lives.
Working out with me. Be very peaceful out there. Watch that car. Watch that car. Yeah! Say USA! USA! Say USA! USA! All right, we're going to bring it back to a little bit of the oldies right now. Let's see what happens.
Wow.
Why, first of all, why are they acting like this is, you guys ever go to like a Jones Beach summer concert? And like the local like classic rock station is there, and there's that radio announcer talking to everyone, throwing out like the T-shirts from the radio truck. Why did they get that guy for their protest?
The one show I've been to at Jones Beach was 9 Inch Nails at Bauhaus, so there were no T-shirt canons there. But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, the difference is here. If you look at the people there, they're not wearing masks. As opposed to protesters for, Black Lives. They're also not out there because people are being murdered by the police. On the contrary, the police were there and they quite clearly let them do their thing. No problems about it.
They were saying defund the sheriff, though, which I think is hilarious. And I'm on board with it. Defund the sheriff to own the libs.
Right, but you also see what this is, though. Like the don't tread on me people, personal freedom, don't tell me what to do, I'm an individual. That's thrown out the window when the boot is on them, right? When the don't tread on me is being treaded on them, all of a sudden.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, of course. That's what it's all, tread on them, not me. That's basically what they're saying when they cheer on the police action against Black Lives Matter, because here they are yelling for the sheriff to be defunded because the sheriff had to shut down this bar. And again, the difference here is this isn't the out of work bar owner. The bar owner who's worried that he's going to lose his small business and is begging for some help. These are people basically saying, I believe there's another clip of some person calling for margaritas or something.
I want a cocktail.
Yeah, like this isn't people on the streets crying out for some help because they need stimulus. These are people who, you remember those lockdown rallies, the anti-lockdown rallies in like April of this year, where people were demanding haircuts. Like this is the equivalent of that. Like you could go to a liquor store or order liquor from your local shop or whatever and have your drink at home. These are just people who want to believe that there is no virus because Trump told them there was nothing to worry about.
Yeah, and because we live in a consumer society where that's like people's sole mode of identifying and interacting with the world is as consumers. So when you take away their treats, they freak out because that's all that they have. It's dark. Right. It's dark as hell.
Right. No, that's a great point. Absolutely. So, I mean, really stark contrast there between a guy in Michigan basically saying, help me so I can listen to you. And then these people saying, screw you, I'm not listening to you at all. Give me my extracurricular, non-essential activities.
I won't do what you tell me.
Right. Did you see? I mean, we've all seen that clip by now, those two people dancing to Rage Against the Machine, but you guys saw Tom Morello's tweet when he retweeted the clip and basically said, "Not exactly what we had in mind."
Yeah.
Oh, I love Tom Morello.
The Trump supporters yelling, I won't do what you tell me," while wearing a Blue Lives Matter thin blue line flag.
No.
My God.
Dear. I do like it, though, that they have declared an autonomous zone. Like this
Right, I
is
forgot to mention that.
This is the year of right-wing direct action. So maybe someday they can make some kind of a treaty with the autonomous zone in Seattle, and we can be getting somewhere.
Well, the funny thing is, these guys probably think they're being clever by using the left wing's autonomous zone in Seattle against them. But in reality, that autonomous zone in Seattle was a rarity coming from the left. This whole sovereign citizen thing, that's exactly what this is, and that's totally a right-wing thing.
Yeah. Well, there are some vague areas of overlap, right? Like there is a certain anti-government sentiment, shall we say, a certain anti-establishment sentiment that exists on the right and on the left. And there are some commonalities, but then again, stuff like this is pretty far from anything vaguely left.
Well, the huge difference is obviously when the left discusses an autonomous zone or an anti-state scenario, it's because they assume and imagine a scenario where everyone who's part of that autonomous zone pitches in and helps each other out, and it's for the collective, this new society, and that's great. If it, I'm all for that part of it. But the right wing's version of sovereign citizen is I, the individual, do whatever I want, and if that other individual is able to join me because they have the money or the ability to join me, then that's cool. But otherwise, every person is on their own. It's not quite the same.
Yeah, no. Before everyone gets mad at me, I was being humorous just now. Just so you know. I got to stop reading the comments. Should we read some IMs?
Yeah, let's go to the IMs then. Right, and then that's the show, right? Yeah. All right, so let's go to the IMs. Let's see. Benny Buttons did not like how that caller was talking over you earlier. The one who thought the left should be nicer, Jamie. He did not enjoy.
I didn't appreciate it either, I gotta say.
Saying it was maybe latent for him, but overt for us. Sexism, Benny Button says. The post left agrees too. At what point will men who call in understand talking over a woman doesn't make your point stronger? Okay, let's see. Eric Zachary says Bernie's method of talking about the issues worked so well that he squandered the largest grassroots movement of all time and lost the primary to Joe freaking Biden. Well, I agree with what you're saying for the most part when it comes to this guy's point.
I don't think that's
But also that's not why he lost to Joe Biden. I do think there's opportunity that was left on the table when it comes to his movement.
Yeah, that's the same mistake that from the other side, basically.
Yeah, that was kind of mean. I gotta say, oops, ouch on that one.
Right. So I believe I agree with the first half. The second half, that's not why he lost the primary. Let's see. Okay, this is from Dr. Eric from New Jersey. Hey, MR crew, you heard it here first. Do some breaking news. There'll be a massive and controversial COVID-19 story tomorrow. The COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance is giving a national press conference on an effective COVID exposure prophylaxis regimen. There will be a huge backlash and it will be highly reminiscent of the hydroxychloroquine debacle. Watch my interview with Elisha on TMBS to learn more about it. I'm not sure what you're talking about because it hasn't come out yet, but do you know anything more, Matt, being that it was discussed on TMBS?
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but I think it's out. Maybe it's not out yet, but yeah, go to the TMBS YouTube page for that.
Let's see what else. Duber says, I interviewed a psychiatrist on gay rights, and he said activists protested nicely for decades, but it wasn't until the civil rights movement was successful that activists got confrontational with the Stonewall riots. Then activists went to an academic psychiatry conference and threw dildos at the doctors. Leaders met, discussed, showed evidence, and 2 years later, homosexuality was removed as a clinical mental disorder.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's obviously that's not the foolproof method to get social change. But ultimately, I do think people think they're being movement strategists when they're really just being uncomfortable with conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Direct action gets the goods, folks. Oftentimes throughout history. I mean, look, we just saw widespread rioting in France because they tried to make it illegal to film the police. And guess what? I'm pretty sure they're pulling back on that law now.
Right. I'm glad Matt said that what the IMer mentioned isn't always applicable in every situation, because I quite frankly was ready to get in my car, drive down to DC, and start lobbing dildos at Capitol Hill. Let's go to Space Lennon. I'm a high school teacher. I'd like to call in just to talk to someone on Zoom who has their camera on and might talk back. Oh boy. Are you discovering that high school students are not taking to, at least your high school students are not taking to remote learning quite well, or not acting in good faith? You know, just logging in and not turning on the camera and pretending they're there when they're really not. Do you get any people who have filmed themselves sitting there and use that as their background while they went and played video games? I've seen some stories about that. Man, these kids, very smart, clever.
It's preparing them for their working lives as adults.
Right. Clever girl.
They had a really good segment on Street Fight recently where everybody called in and gave their best their best take on calling in to work to tell the boss why they couldn't come in that day. It was super good.
Winnipeg Craig says, I think there are a lot of people who would be more okay with quarantine directives if they were paid to stay home, but definitely not all of them. In Canada, we've got anti-mask protests too, and we had $2,000 a month benefits for people who lost their jobs. Oh, absolutely. There is a much larger portion of people who fell into this world of conspiracy theorists during COVID and had these conspiracies basically, in their views, proven to them due to the lack of help. If those people got help, they wouldn't have fallen for these conspiracy theories. Now, on the other end, there are people who create these conspiracy theories and spread them. Those people, obviously, their minds wouldn't be changed and they wouldn't stop doing what they do if they got help. But obviously, they are actually in the minority of that, that group. Still dangerous, obviously, but it wouldn't be as much for sure.
Yeah, and it would be easier to disaggregate the people who are doing like culture wars garbage versus the people who are genuinely afraid for their livelihoods if there were some real help coming.
Right. Fabu Cat says Rokahana supports a $2,000 a month check. Right. Yeah, of course. There are Democrats who support stimulus. Brendan. Shore Rap says
all
Jamie.
Right. Knock it off.
Jamie, this is Shore Rap. Jamie, as always, looking gorgeous. Always a pleasure hearing from her. And Matt Binder, hey, you're here.
Also gorgeous.
Left is best. I'm just here. Well, thank you, Brendan. I appreciate that. Now I can't rag on you anymore.
Now you can't rag on me for misreading tweets.
Yeah. Baruch the Scribe says, isn't the MR studio in Hakeem Jeffrey's district? Is it?
I think his district covers a lot of Brooklyn, so I would not be surprised.
Oh yeah. I mean, not where I live in Brooklyn, at least.
Volume 2 of Capital says, you guys see Lee Fang's recent nuclear takes, on policing? Yeah. And
so bad,
really
dude.
Bad.
Almost bad. Like I don't know. I'm suspicious why you, because somebody, especially when you do actually real journalism, why you air something that stupid.
What are you
offensive.
doing? It's weird. Like him and a few other people related to The Intercept, they do so much good journalism and then they do shit like that. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? What's your deal? I tweeted back at him, actually. I know that I shouldn't waste my breath on people and things of this nature, but some can't help it. And I keep tweeting at him to read, what did I say? Oh, Angela Davis's book, Are Prisons Obsolete? Because he just so very clearly either has not done the reading, either he's ignorant of the purpose that the police serve in a capitalist society, or he's aware of it and just doesn't care. But I made sure that he has all the resources that he needs to do better informed takes. So I can only assume his next tweet will be better.
Yeah, one could hope, right?
I'm trying to be the change I want to see in the world, Got to be
Right.
constructive with your shit posts.
Cthulhu Chavez says, I can appreciate the direction the show is going, showcasing fart videos. Can we get some dick and cum jokes thrown in along with discussing the validity of Nancy Pelosi's position in the House? Listen,
Don't
if that's what
tempt
people
us.
want, if that's what the people want. Luke says, I haven't seen anyone make hay of this yet, but parlor, aka parlay, is French for to talk, pronounced parlay. It's ironic that the largest cohort of people to be allergic to anything French is flocking under the banner of the social network with the Frenchiest name there could be. What did you not listen to when I was talking? That's literally exactly what I said 2 or 3 weeks ago about what a coincidence that the anti-French freedom fries people are flocking to a social network named after a French word.
It's just another sign of the collapse of the post-World War II order.
Yeah. Winnipeg Craig says, defund the sheriff, but do not defund the deputy.
My God.
Kowalski from Nebraska says, don't be nice. You got to be strong and steadfast in your beliefs like Bernie. Good Morning Comrade says, I talked on my show, Good Morning Comrade, about the WWE and how they just fired Zelina Vega and her comments about supporting a wrestlers union. Oh, I got to listen to that. I think I mentioned that on the show last time, actually. Left Pelosi?
Pelosi?
Oh, okay.
Left communist?
Pelosi. Right. I was putting together the wrong words. Right. Left. Got it. Okay. Bernie also supports 2K stimulus. And it looks like the final IM of the day is bottom structure. In regards to what Jamie was saying about the crossover with Q, and on my cousin who is practicing Wiccan and deep believer in crystal healing is a full-on Q supporter, but she's fairly left-wing on a lot of policy. How old is your cousin? I'm assuming being did you say she? Oh, yes, you did. Okay. You said
she's
she.
45 years old and she's a doctor.
But it's there is actually a large percentage of women of a certain age range. I would say, suburban women between 30 and 40, 50 who have children who are falling hard for this QAnon stuff because of the focus on the whole save the children, ending child trafficking. I'm not being, I'm really not trying to be, lump everyone in a group, but it's just the truth. It's quite factual from.
I've heard younger, but the same sort of idea.
I'm sure 20s too, right?
I'm thinking a gateway drug.
20s in New York probably less likely than 20s in somewhere where they're more likely to become a young mother. Basically, if you have kids, you hear this stuff and it affects you. Because who wouldn't want to see children not being stolen from their homes and being sold into sex slavery? I mean, there's no one, there is, unfortunately, but there is barely anyone who agrees that stuff is good. The problem with QAnon, though, is they're not actually doing anything about it because they don't actually care about it. That's the hook to make you care about it. And their goal is to make you think Donald Trump is a demigod. And that's sadly what's happening. Actually, they're quite successful at doing this to women in that particular group that I and Matt just mentioned.
I think it's less about caring about children because we all care about the children, right? And more about a certain susceptibility to wingnutty nonsense, which is rampant in the quote unquote wellness community. And it's not that hard to make the jump from, jade vagina crystals or whatever to QAnon.
Right. Yeah, but I think Matt's right about that. I see the save the children stuff. That is a it's really just the new evolution of the pro-life stuff, I think.
Right.
For the the QAnon era. But I think there is something about I'm saving babies, so I obviously have the best and most important political issue.
Right. But the difference is, like, you can fight back against the pro-life people because a lot of people are pro-choice and it affects them, and there's two sides to the issue. You can't fight an issue that has one side because the addendum is that they're not actually fighting for it. It's much harder. You know what I mean? Like you fight the pro-life people by explaining the positives about pro-choice, how it empowers women, it takes care of women, and how women need to be able to make that choice for their own, to have sovereignty over their own bodies and be able to take care of their own health. There is no other side to argue against someone who's saying child sex slavery and sex trafficking is bad. Do you not agree with what QAnon is saying? Like, that's a much harder conversation. There's more nuance to the explanation that that's just not happening what they're saying in the terms that they're saying it. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's why it's so much harder to fight against what they're pushing forward.
Yeah, and also it's hard to say that it is, closely tied to QAnon, because they're like, well, it is an actual thing that does happen ultimately.
Right.
Like Bryce Harper, the biggest star in baseball on Giving Tuesday, asked his fans to donate to a Save the Children Foundation called Operation Underground Railroad, and it's an organization that was founded in 2013 by former special agents with the Department of Homeland Security, who basically has a militia squad that goes after supposed child traffickers. It's to some degree, this is also the war coming home.
I'm glad you brought that. I'm glad you brought that group up, because I recently did an episode on that on my show. Go to youtube.com/Matt Binder or doomedpod.com for the podcast version on Operation Underground Railroad, because they have been very successful at selling the QAnon Save the Children stuff to basically normal people. And in the episode that I discussed the organization in, we focus on how basically there is this one referee in the WWE who is full on QAnon, and he uses charity events with Operation Underground to basically rope in Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's cousin, who is a wrestler, into supporting and promoting this group. So it is a legit problem. It is, and it's dragging people in who quite honestly have no idea what they're getting themselves into.
Not
but
good.
Yeah, that's our show. Once again, 9 p.m. Eastern time tonight, youtube.com/Matt Binder, a show all about exactly what we were just talking about, the wellness community and QAnon, and what this all means for the future of the conspiracy theory, and quite frankly, the future of all us. It's getting kind of bad, folks. But anyway, on a positive note, I enjoyed being here with you all on our first show since Thanksgiving on a Thursday fun half, and hope you all have a great week. Matt, Jamie, Brendan, you guys are back here with Sam tomorrow, and Nomiki show starting in a couple of minutes at her YouTube channel right now. And other than that, thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Bye-bye.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my